7 o'clock, so we shall begin. Can I get a motion to return through public session?
Move.
Second.
Thank you. Michael, can we have a call to order? Call to order. Opening statement. Read that for everyone. Opening statement. Meetings of the board are open to the public and all members of the community should feel free to participate. There are two opportunities for the public to speak. The first is at the beginning of the meeting for agenda items only, and the second is at the end of the meeting for other items. Any individual desiring to speak shall give his or her name, address, and the group, if any, that is represented. The presentation shall be as brief as possible, but no more than 3 minutes per individual. There are certain matters that may be brought before the board that cannot be immediately addressed in public. Such matters may be referred by the president to a board committee and/or to the superintendent for consideration and/or resolution. The board vests in its president or presiding officer authority to terminate the remarks of any individual if he or she deems it in the best interest of those present to do so. Roll call.
Mr. Reddy.
Here.
Mr. Wall.
Here.
Mrs. Briamonte.
Here.
Mrs. Zhang.
Here.
Dr. Kalor.
Here.
Mrs. Cicillo.
Here.
Mr. Buckley.
Here.
Mr. Damari.
Here.
Mr. Mann.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mike. Can we rise for a flag salute, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I ask everyone to remain standing just for 1 minute more? If we could just have a moment of silence for all the individuals and people that are affected in Israel, from the Hamas side to the Jewish, Israeli side, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. So tonight we have a few things to do. One of the better things, we get to recognize students today. So you might see a lot of students in the audience, and many of these students you see out here are super, super smart. What they accomplished and what they did and what you'll hear from the younger grades all the way up to the high school is absolutely phenomenal. I definitely wasn't always one of these kids that can get these perfect test scores. So kids that have made it tonight, be proud of yourselves. I mean, there's not many times in life you'll get recognized for a lot of things, and you guys did tremendous job on these different state tests and SATs and math and reading and things like that. So Dr. Cascone, if you want to take over for the NJSLA and SAT perfect score recognition.
With pleasure, President Reddy. Thank you. Check. Yeah. Not sure what kind of confidence that engenders that the superintendent can't figure out how to turn on the microphone, but let's just say I have other skills that I bring to bear. Anyway, good evening, everyone. Welcome. So pleased to have our families and our outstanding young scholars here tonight to be recognized for really what is truly, listen, it's perfection. In most aspects of life, perfection is not something we achieve, but when it comes to academics, it is. And that is what we recognize tonight, is perfection. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Indian Hill School and work our way up. I'm going to ask, do we have Ms. Vitale, you want to come down? I'm going to ask the building principal and assistant principal to come down with me and join me in providing the certificates. Students, once you receive your certificate, we're going to ask you to just take a spot on the risers here. And once we have our full cohort assembled, then we'll invite parents and guardians to come up and take a group picture of the students. Also, once we complete that portion of the recognition, you are free to take your leave from the meeting. And if you did want to snap a picture in front of the Holmdel background, you should certainly feel free to do that. So without further ado, grab the certificate. And Mississippi. Okay, starting with grade 4 from the spring administration of the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment. We had first a perfect score in mathematics, Bethana Admasu. Bethana? A perfect score in English language arts, Callista Anastasio. Perfect score in English language arts, Yuhan Chen. And finally, perfect score in English language arts, Scarlett Surwich. In grade 5, perfect score in English language arts, Madalena Badger. Perfect score in English language arts, Colette Look. And finally, a perfect score in mathematics, Blake Schick. And now to our grade 6 mathematics. Perfect score in mathematics, Anderson Cosmos. Congratulations. Mathematics, perfect score, Trevor Dietrich. Perfect score in mathematics, Ethan Furman. Perfect score in English language arts and mathematics. Wow. Derek R. Lee. Don't forget to get one for mathematics. Say both. And perfect score in mathematics, Yulan Chen. And now grade 6, perfect score in mathematics, Madeline Marinaccio. So when we have an unfortunate oversight like that, the student gets an extra bonus, which is I go to the school personally to their classroom and hand it to them. So it's actually a benefit. I get to come and embarrass you in front of all your classmates. So you can expect to see me in your mathematics class sooner rather than later. Perfect scores in English language arts and mathematics, Isha Nair. Perfect score in mathematics, Gianna Pagliaro. Perfect score in English language arts, John Smigelski. Perfect score in English language arts, Olivia Sum. And finally, perfect score in mathematics, Derek Sun. Ms. Vitale, Mr. Jazinski, would you mind taking place with the students? Parents, guardians, please. We invite you. How about another round of applause for our amazing young scholars from Indian Hill? Congratulations. Did you know Derek Lee? Right. I see Mrs. Simonelli back there, assistant principal of SAT School, join me down here. Could I kindly ask you to just grab the SAT certificates from over there? Thank you so much. Okay, getting it started with SATS Middle School. Starting off with a perfect score in mathematics, Jess Burden. Perfect score in English language arts, Pranav Deshpande. Perfect score in mathematics, Serena Patel. Perfect score in mathematics, Andy Wu. Perfect score in mathematics, Simon Zhang. And now on to our grade 8 recipients. Tudor Barkan, Algebra 1. Anish Batra, Algebra 1. Perfect score in Algebra 1 and English Language Arts, Amishi Batra. Perfect score in English Language Arts, Tatiana Bulova. Perfect score Algebra 1, Eric Woe. Perfect score in Algebra 1 and English Language Arts, Sming Jiang. Continuing with our grade 8 perfect scores, English Language Arts, Cheryl Nolan. Algebra 1, Sebastian Postigo. Another perfect score in Algebra 1 and English Language Arts, Samvarth Raj. Perfect score English Language Arts, Peter Scheiss. Perfect score Algebra 1, Hairong Wang. And last in grade 8, Algebra 1, Brian Zhang. How about our stats perfect scholars? Something else. Parents and guardians, please feel free to join us for a picture. Come on up. SAT school. Thank you, folks. Congratulations. I'll now ask our high school principal, Dr. Kokoda, to come up and help me present the perfect scores for the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, as well as perfect SAT scores. Dr. Kokoda, could I trouble you to grab the certificates? Appreciate it. Okay, starting it off with grade 9, perfect score in Algebra 1, Timur Balagansky. English Language Arts, Maggie Conti. Grade 10, English Language Arts, Mina Liang. And now our 2023 perfect SAT score recipients. In evidence-based reading and writing, Raymond Kai. In mathematics, Nicholas Clifford. Grade 12, evidence-based reading and writing, Elisa Gunawardana. Grade 12, mathematics, Andrea Postigo. Grade 11, mathematics, Ashley Sherman. Grade 12, evidence-based reading and writing, Angelina Wang. Grade 12, mathematics, Chris Wang. And finally, in mathematics, grade 12, Alexandra Whittle. Any parents, guardians like to come up and get a good picture? Please feel free. ninth grade student who is now studying at biotech, ninth grade, perfect score in English, Nisha Khan. And apparently it's not just going down to Indian Hill. I'm gonna have to go to biotechnology high school and really embarrass you there. So please come on up. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Khan. So another round of applause for our amazing high school scholars, and a big round of applause for all the students, all the families that support them, as well as our outstanding faculty. Congratulations and thank you for coming. Thank you.
For those children that are leaving and parents, there are cookies and refreshments outside. So you obviously don't have to stay, but feel free to take a cookie on your way out or refreshments or whatever it may be out there. And our second presentation of the night will be by the infamous Mr. Art Howard on the HIB self-assessment and year-end summary. So if I can ask Mr. Howard to come on down, and the mic is his.
I get that clicker. Good evening, everyone, and congratulations once again to all of the students who received a certificate in recognition tonight. What I'm going to do is talk about the HIB assessment, self-assessment that all districts have to do annually. This has to be reported out prior to October 31st, then submitted to the State Department. First, I'd like to just say thank you to all of our bullying specialists in each school. Each building has one designated for Village. It's Ms. Barbara. For Indian Hills, Ms. Jennings. For William R. Satz, it's Mr. Bruce. And for the high school, it's Tracy Morosco. They helped me to compile the data, put this stuff into understandable form, then submit to the state. So I couldn't really have done any of this without the help of these folks. Like I said, the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act is designed, this is part of that act, and it's designed to give parents and the board a clear understanding of where our district lies in terms of our bullying policies and procedures. It's not really about actual bullying incidents. It's more about policy and how we go about the process of going through a HIB. So understanding the assessment. Again, its purpose of the self-assessment is really about understanding what programs we have, the process that we go through to identify an HIB and submit it up to the superintendent, which then goes to the board. And it talks about what types of training that we have district-wide to teachers and to all support staff. That's really the purpose of what the self-assessment covers. In the self-assessment, you can get a maximum of 78 points. 78 points would be a perfect in terms of an assessment score. The minimum score that you would need to be sufficient in terms of the DOE's eyes is a 54. So 54 is the bare minimal for passing. 78 is what will be considered a perfect. The grading system, the self-assessments are based out of 8 core elements, which is up on the board. I know there's a little glare there, so you really can't see. But again, those 8 core elements talk all about programs. They talk about how we do our processes, and they also cover what we do in terms of training. Each core element has anywhere from 1 to 5 indicators. Like, for example, for the first core element, which talks about HIB programs, approaches, and other initiatives, there's 5 indicators. So we're scored on each one. This is really annoying. We're scoring on each one of those 5 indicators from 0 to 4. 0 means that we don't meet the requirements. 3, I said 0 to 4, 0 to 3. 0 is we don't meet the requirements. 3 means we exceed all the requirements for that specific indicator. So I'm going to give you our assessment results from last year, and I'm going to compare those to what we did currently for this year. Last year's results, if you remember, when I did the presentation, there was 3 areas that we scored particularly low in. And those 3 areas is what I highlighted. Core element 2, 3, and 5, which particularly talks about training. When I came into the position, that was one of the things that was kind of a glaring thing that we needed to try to improve ourselves on, training not just for staff, but for all workers, staff that are in these buildings, lunch monitors, aides, paraprofessionals, everybody. So last year our score is 67, 66, 67, 68. So our average score last year was like around 68. But you can see this year for Village, 75, for Indian Hill, 75, for SAT, 73, and for the high school, 75. Now, the difference in SATs, the 2 points where they lost, was procedure. Like the state outlines a specific time when a person, a parent, or student notifies a principal of a HIB. There's a specific timeline for that HIB to be completed, and then it has to be sent up to the administration. There was a few times from the building principal up to central office where that timeline wasn't kept strictly, so they lost points for there. But you can see the buildings are pretty much consistent. As we try to make them consistent, like I meet with the bullying specialists, we kind of standardize language and procedure so that everybody is basically doing the same thing. Like if you're a parent and you have a student in Indian Hill and then a student in SATS, the procedure for them should be the same. So seeing the numbers similar is nothing astronomical. They should be similar. A little score comparison, 5 years. Last year, like I said, we averaged around a 67, and that was primarily because of the lack of training that we were doing to staff members. But that's one of the things that we immediately focused on through the use of Vector, and also going around to different faculty meetings, providing training, which brought our score back up to a 73. Most districts hover anywhere between 70 and 75. You don't really see a lot of places with perfect scores of 78. So like I said, the assessment itself really just talks about procedures, programs, and training. But I also wanted to provide everybody with some data from the actual HIB cases that the district went through last year. So just, this is actually not from school data. This is taken from bullying.org. You know, bullying has always been a tough topic, right? It's been going on for a long time. When I was in school, there was bullying. So it's something that has been consistently happening to students way back when I was like in middle school. But the difference is, as we now, you know, currently, what we try to do is to help students and the people understand that you don't really need to sit and tolerate any misbehavior or mistreatment from anybody. But what you also need to do is speak up and talk about what's going on with you to a teacher, to to the counselor, to one of the principals, to a parent, then can come talk to the school. It's really trying to get students to really have more of a voice so you don't sit and just kind of suffer through this stuff like in silence. So here are some of the bullying statistics from our district last year. There were 40 HIBs that were submitted in total, which was 4%, 4 less than the previous year. But that percentage is not really statistically significant, but there are 4 less HIBs from the previous year. 16 substantiated. There were 18 that was unsubstantiated, 4 that was inconclusive, and 2 that was partially founded. Now, what that means is probably the report had numerous students involved in it. So some may have been substantiated, others may have been found to not really be involved. So that's what partially unfounded means. Inconclusive probably means there wasn't enough evidence presented or enough evidence when they investigated and received by the bullying specialist to classify this as an HIB, so it was inconclusive. Now, although something may not be classified as an HIB according to the state guidelines, that does not mean that it's not a violation of the school's code of conduct. And I have code of conduct data to show as well. But unsubstantiated HIB doesn't mean it goes without consequence or punishment. It could be a violation of the school's code of conduct. If you want to do a yearly, I gave a yearly breakdown just to see like what times of the month, because I was interested in that. What months out of the year do you have, you see the most bullying occur? You see the yellow is October, which is surprising. I guess maybe it's Halloween candy, people, or I don't know, but October seems to be a hot month for bullying, and also February, which again, we have some few days off in February. I'm not exactly sure. That's Valentine's Day, you know, who knows? But just because you can find a correlation, that doesn't necessarily means that's the cause. Locations of HIB, which is particularly interesting because when you think of where does an HIB or something like this occur, you would think it occurs like in an unstructured time, like maybe at a lunchroom, on the bus, outside. But the majority of the HIB incidents recorded last year occurred in the classroom. Now, that may be surprising. You're like, well, how's it in the classroom? Aren't these, you know, the teachers in the classroom? Aren't they watching over the students? When I read through some of the cases, it's the verbal and it's the subtle things that often hurt another person. It's not necessarily that they're standing up in the classroom making a big disturbance. It could be conversations that they're having with their friends that somebody else overhears, right? Those things, when students overhears it, something that they felt that is negative or offensive, then they report it. That's why you see the majority of the, these cases going on in the classroom. I should have pointed out from that other screen from bullying.org, which was also interesting, that the majority of bullying incidents are verbal. There's not a lot of physical bullying incidents that happen. It's mostly the way kids talk to each other, things that they say that they may think is funny or a joke. But just because they think it's funny doesn't mean that the person on the receiving end thinks it's funny. So that means for us, what our responsibility or job is now is to make sure that kids understand that words matter. Everything you say matter. Everything that a person, just because you don't think something is mean or offensive, doesn't mean the person on the other end receiving it thinks the same way that you do. See, again, the bullying types, the majority of them, 80% of the ones that were reported were verbal. And verbal offenses are any kind of comment, taunting, teasing, name calling. It even includes posting or spreading rumors or demeaning gestures. All that stuff wraps around verbal. Now, like I said, there's a difference between HIB and school conduct report. So I also wanted to present some of the conduct report data. District-wide, there was 1,533 conduct reports submitted, right? And you can see from the chart, from the graph up here, where the majority of these conduct reports came from. You don't really get a whole lot from Village and Indian Hill. That's only combined 8% of the 1,500 that were submitted. You see a lot from the high school, right? But a lot of the conduct reports submitted from the high school isn't necessarily kid bad behavior. It's late to class, wandering the hallway, that type of stuff. So even though that's not like a major, what you would consider like a major offense, it is something that a kid will get written up for if they're coming to class late. That's what it was in a lot of the high school situations. In the middle school, pretty much all that verbal stuff, the way that kids talk to each other, the name calling, the teasing, the posting stuff online, the posting stuff on Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram. That's the majority of what these conduct reports seem to be in the middle school. You do have some of the late to class kind of stuff, but it's a lot of behavior of talking to, not knowing how to talk to other people and their peers in the middle school. And I put this chart up here, it's, I don't know if you can actually read it, but you see like for Village in their 3%, the majority of those come from inappropriate behavior. And that could be anything from, if we're talking in Village language, not filling a bucket, not being nice to their peers, saying something mean, that kind of thing for Village, the majority. And you would see the same thing for Indian Hill. The majority of that is just inappropriate behavior, right? Which kind of makes sense. These kids are little, right? They're younger, they're more in the development type of stage. So those types of mistakes, you don't want to give it a pass, but you understand that they may not know any better because they're younger. So you want to teach them so that they don't repeatedly make those kind of same mistakes like again. And also what's interesting, but I didn't actually put it on a chart. It was a discussion that we had that the board was having an exec about how many of these kids are like repeat offenders. You don't really see a lot of repeat offenders for HIB cases. You may see repeat offenders for a conduct report, for, you know, maybe saying something wrong or not doing what they're supposed to do, like in lunch. You'll see repeat offenders for that, but for conduct reports, not really. Like, so once something happens and a report is submitted, that would tell you that at least for that particular incident, maybe that kid, that they understand and they're not doing it. Like, again, you have very low rates of repeated HIVs from the same person. For SATs, you see like the lines get a little different. You got the majority of the conduct reports disturbing class. Talking, they could be talking in class, not listening. The teacher could be trying to do like group project, and kids are not really paying attention. They're doing something else, not listening. But you see the majority of that for the middle school disturbing class. That's the highest number. For the high school, like I said, you have a lot of like cut class. You see that was like 94 submitted. And you have a lot there for disturbing class as well. So you see like some parallels between the behaviors in the lower grades and in the complex. In the lower grades, it's a lot of more inappropriate behavior, right? When you get up to the complex, the middle school and the high school, it's more of what's going on in the classroom, kids not listening in the class, maybe talking or that type of thing, disturbing class. And, like I said, for the high schools, kids being late or tardy to class or cutting. So what are we doing to kind of address these issues? First, the data tools that we're using. And again, I have to give credit to the bullying specialists and also to the APs who have been doing a phenomenal job of putting this stuff into Power School and also into our bullying system, Hipster, because it would be relatively impossible for me. I'd have to be going through paper in order to try to find out this information if these people weren't putting it into the system in an expedient fashion. So I appreciate that they've been on it and doing it. Also, we have our district goal last year and this year. There was a big commitment to character. I chair not only the culture and climate part of the strategic plan, but I also am the person that's responsible for the PBIS initiative that the district is undergoing. So we're doing a lot in terms of trying to build character so we can address issues like, I was mentioning before, of just inappropriate behavior or just the way that kids interact and talk to each other. Those things are what I like to call soft skills. Now, if you look at the soft skills up there and you see things like leadership, self-motivation, being decisive, flexible, those are the same things that you want a good employee to have. You want an employee who's flexible, can get along with people, can handle a situation, being decisive. So those skills that we're trying to teach kids now, even when you talk about the littles down in Village, that type of thing or skills that they're going to need as they move and progress up through life. So those are the things that are this character commitment is trying to press forward. Also, we're doing more in terms of establishing core values for the district. One of the things that the PBIS committee came up with, and Ms. DeCillo, I still have to give her credit because she sat there with us as we brainstormed and went through this, are Live Blue philosophy. All the schools have really, and I'm again thankful to them because all the schools have really took this and ran with it. We have Live Blue, like at Village, the kids recite their Live Blue motto every morning. Be respectful, live responsibly, uphold fairness, embrace citizenship. you'll see posters all over the district and in classrooms about living blue. The two pictures up there are actually from Village. They had a Live Blue assembly where students from the high school, the cheerleading students came down and actually did something for the younger students, and the parent group there. They're the ones that came up with the Live Blue on the t-shirts and on the sweaters, and we also have like Live Blue silicone bracelets. We're just trying to make sure that the entire district, everybody knows what living Holmdel blue actually means. Included with that is every month we have a basically a different theme. So when we have like students of the month, the respect student of the month, staff of the month. If we have assemblies, they all center around whatever that theme is. Like October is respect, because that's New Jersey nationally. The week of respect and all of that is in October. But there's a different character trait for every month that all schools abide by. We also have parent workshops. We had one recently on HIB. That was on the 17th of October. We have one coming up in the 1st of November on suicide prevention that I'm doing. I mean, besides, my hat as assistant superintendent, I'm also a licensed therapist, in the great state of New Jersey. And I have certifications in anxiety and depression and also mood disorders. So between my background knowledge of that, in addition to the lifelines prevention that we had, the principals, APs, counselors, members of CST. Last year, we went through roughly 19 hours of suicide prevention training. That was last year. This year, our responsibility is now to turnkey that to the rest of the community. Ms. Lamoglia and I have been going around to each faculty meeting, talking about lifelines to the staff and our bullying prevention efforts. Next part of that is we're going to talk to the students at each one of the class meetings. And like I said, on November 1st, we have the suicide prevention workshop that I'm running for parents. Another thing that we're rolling out is an anonymous reporting system that's called Stop It. Actually, their office is actually in Bell Works. Stop It, like when I said earlier about trying to give students a voice, this is one of the methods that we're doing that. We did a assessment, a security assessment of the district, and one of the things that was present in there was having an anonymous reporting system. So we're going to be rolling this out actually in November. So we did a soft rollout already in the summer, which you couldn't really submit tickets for incidents. The soft rollout was to give parents some familiarity with the app, and also it gives them access to mental health assistance in Monmouth County, right? So we're going to do a full rollout come November for this. Another thing that we've been doing, we've partnered with Teacher Coach. They were the people who actually came and did our keynote this year to the staff. That's a quick synopsis about Teacher Coach. If you know what SEL is about, social emotional learning and self-care, Teacher Coach is pretty much all along the lines of that. So it's professional development They train teachers who then turnkey that to their peers about self-care, social emotional protection of themselves, because the better they are to themselves, the better they can be to students. And we've also done some things in terms of staffing. We hired 2 licensed behavioral clinicians that are Holmdel employees now. We were contracting out for the service, but now the service is in-house. We hired another school counselor at the elementary. She's housed at Indian Hill. And we also refined the process for our behavioral threat assessment. Frank Papalia, Amanda Lamoglia, and myself rewrote that manual, and we've also been doing the training for staff on this as well. And of course, we have our district guidance staff who are available if there's an issue or a problem with a child or with your child. You can contact your school counselor. I know one of the things that we talked about district-wide is more communication from the guidance department to families. So one of the things that we're doing is like a monthly newsletter that goes out to parents from, there's one for the elementary, and there's one also for the complex, just to give parents information about upcoming activities, things that may be going on, workshops or different types of groups that the counselors run. And that's pretty much it, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Art. For your time on this, I know we've, listening to this HIB assessment for years. I think the last couple of years, this year and last year, I like the, it's years ago we were 100% across the board, and I remember sitting up here going, we're not 100%. I know we're not 100% because no one's perfect, no district is perfect. So, I'm glad to see a continued effort on everything that you've went through. 40 HIB cases, down a few. That's good. Of the 1,500 conduct reports, are those conduct reports, those are reported by teachers and administrators?
Teachers and or administrators.
Okay. And it's interesting, obviously, this is data from last year. So obviously those SAT students are now Dr. Kokoda's care now in 9th grade, and obviously, everyone moved up a year. So any questions from board members?
I've got some comments.
Yes, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Howard, for organizing all the data. And I know you've been working hard on the culture and climate here in Holmdel. I'm excited to see what the results will be for all this additional training that I guess wasn't happening and that we put a lot of emphasis on, and the new hires. It's only going to improve things here. I wanted to just mention the community, 79% on the verbal harassment. I mean, we're just speaking about hipster and implementing that, and also discussing, and we're learning more about the material they may provide to students to help in the resolution for students to learn from their consequences. So I'm excited about that. I know looking at those SATs being the leader in incidents, that's been discussed throughout the summer and last year to improve that. And I think we're off to a good start this year. So that's nice. Can we figure out why February and October are the most incidents? I don't know if did you mention that, or can we learn more about that? That's interesting.
Yeah, when I get the data for this year, if we see the same thing, I just said like, okay, October's Halloween.
A lot of candy.
A lot of candy. February, Valentine's Day, a lot of candy. So I don't know if that's actually like the case, but I'll be interested to see when I look at the data again this year.
Mr. Howard, I would just add, and this, of course, this is anecdotal. I think what we see in October is, sort of, the honeymoon period, if you will, the beginning of the year is sort of over. Students start to feel, more comfortable in the school setting. It's that first 6 weeks of the school year. It's a rigorous 6 weeks. So I think when we get to October, I think students start to tire a little bit. We all do really to some extent. And then sort of when we get into November, it's a bit of a abbreviated month with the teachers convention and the Thanksgiving holiday. So that's just anecdotal for October. And I think February, you see a similar thing. It's that dead of winter. There's people are fighting oftentimes physical illness, that kind of cabin fever. It's, the holiday break seems like a distant memory and spring break seems a long way off. So I think, but I think there's good insights we can, gain from that. Is like, those are probably precisely the times where we should really be ramping up on some of these additional culture and climate pieces to keep people's mindsets positive, and focus on the culture during those times. Of course, anecdotal, but just a couple of thoughts in 25 years knocking around, that I could offer.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And it's good to know, so we could focus on that and be proactive. When you did a presentation early in the year, when we talk about where the most incidents are happening, it's now classrooms are 31% the most. I thought it was hallway and cafeteria. Did that change based on, or was that different data coming from a different source?
Wasn't necessarily different data. I think that was, are you talking about last year's presentation?
Different school year.
Yeah, so from what I got from the data from last year, a lot of it was happening like in the cafeteria and unstructured areas, like even on the bus. I mean, like, I could try to draw a correlation, but correlation doesn't necessarily mean causality. There was some different things going on last year in terms of behavior in the lunchroom. Like, for example, kids were just like having their phones.
Mhm.
That one thing could, the elimination of that could have decreased the number of incidents in the cafeteria. But the majority of them now seems to be like verbal stuff that happens like in the classroom, which is, when you look at that slide from bullying.org, it kind of mimics what is happening countrywide. So it's not like an anomaly here for Holmdel. You see that the majority of incidents aren't physical, they're verbal, and they happen in the classroom just from people just basically not being nice to each other.
Yeah, thanks for that. And that'll be good to know if it is something like the phones, not having them as much as they had or not supposed to, then that'd be good data to understand as well. Why that, because that changed significantly. I also wanted to note the survey, the facts and stats, the 76% of students are not satisfied with the school response. Was that a nationwide?
That was nationwide data from bullying.org, but it
Okay.
also, again, kind of mimics when we did the initial survey for the guidance department. One of the major comments was that people didn't understand, number one, the HIB process, and two, that they felt that when they did go to the schools for an HIB, their case wasn't handled appropriately. So again, the data nationwide kind of mimics the data for Holmdel, which is also why we instituted those parent workshop nights so that people can understand what the HIB process is. They haven't been like greatly attended, but I still would say that those things are kind of necessary. Maybe we need to have them at a different time of the year, but understanding of the process kind of eliminates a lot of the questions about how things are handled.
Or just to add something to that. So in the strategic plan survey that we did last year, one of the items that we saw was, related to that, and it mimicked it to some extent. Our percentage was not that high, but it still was an area that was identified as parents as an area where we could improve. I think it was something, and I don't know the figure off the top of my head, but I think it was in the high 40% of the parent respondents indicated that they felt that we could improve the way we handle those. So while not as high as the national average, still an area that we identified as something we should improve upon.
Thank you for sharing that. Let's continue to get data too from see how we're doing in Holmdel with that. But I appreciate all you're doing, and I want to continue to stress a focus on making sure that our students that are involved in these incidents they're learning from their consequences and the resolution that we're providing for them as they move forward, failure to succeed. So I just want to make sure we continue to focus on that as well, along with the reporting. Thanks for all you do, Mr. Howard. Thank you.
Mr. Howard, yeah, I'm sorry, just want to add one point. Just to piggyback, I apologize, just to piggyback on Mr. Demari's comment, and I've mentioned this to the board before. We have an extremely low rate of recidivism amongst offenders in HIB, which I think is good data as it relates to the efficacy of our intervention efforts. It's very rare that we have multiple time offenders. So I just thought that was relevant to mention. Thank you, Mr. Howard. Excellent work.
And Board President, I just have a brief comment in two parts. We very much appreciate what you and your team are doing. And there are two particular things that jump out to me. This is the best presentation that I've seen since being on the board, period, for a couple of different reasons. Anna, thank you. You really should give them a round of applause. It's well deserved. But there are two brief reasons. One is that you dove into it head first with the team, with detail, and also bringing tools, technology, techniques, and other different items to the fore, specific to the purpose, which is fantastic. But something that's even bigger in a different way is that we're not clean sheeting it. Districts across the state talk about how wonderful and fantastic everything is going, but they're going to get better. Instead of pulling up the carpet, pulling out what's wrong, fixing it, acknowledging that both success and failure are perfectly fine if you're acknowledging where you're failing and where we're failing, rather, because a board is not very useful if they don't have the facts, they don't have what the truth is. Administration doesn't have, they have, platitudes and words that things are wonderful when they're not, and talk about when they are. So the fact that we're not clean sheeting it over the last couple of years. I remember last year, the year before, you identified deficiencies in our reporting process. I think that's great. It's not great that we had that, but it's great that you identify it and that you dig into it and that you dig into the detail and then you fix it. And so now the folks can have trust and confidence that the data that they're getting is solid. And that matters a lot. And I think that's a big differentiator in how this is handled. And I just wanted to thank you for that reason as well, because it's very important that we know what things are, whether they're good or bad or indifferent, as opposed to what is, I think, classically served out in many districts across the state. So I very much appreciate that. I think the whole board does, but I just want to thank you for that clear differentiator that helps all the kids and the parents, everyone here in town. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation. It was great. And I love that I could be a part of, in my opinion, the Live Holmdel Blue, the PBIS that we've started here will live on for years. And it's like a historical year that this is going to be something that's going to be in our history and ingrained with every child moving forward. And I hope that they, even as adults, like some of us up here that have come back to Holmdel to raise our kids, that it's that their kids do the same and they talk about living Holmdel Blue. And I'm just happy to be a part of, to me, a historical thing for Holmdel. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. That brings us to the report of the student representatives to the board. So Nuga, Jack, who's going to go first over there?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This past Thursday, the high school hosted its first ever homecoming harvest dance, receiving great student feedback. Additionally, powder puff preparations have begun, with all the permission slips and orders having been due at the end of last week. The game will be held on Tuesday, November 7th at 3 p.m. In other news, congratulations to our boys soccer team who defeated East Brunswick Magnet High School 6-0 in the first round of the Central Jersey Group 2 playoffs. Additionally, all 4 classes are looking for snack stand donations for the football game this Friday. Please consider making a snack donation by using the link found in the morning announcements. We appreciate your support. Thank you. Now, I will now pass the student report on to Jack.
Thanks, Anuna. Battle of the Classes is back and better than ever. The changes each class and SAB have made will have BOTC run all year long, with our annual battle on November 21st at 7 p.m. Here, students, siblings, parents, and teachers will join together to see which class will be deemed the champions. To begin with this new phase of BOTC, we are establishing teams of 16 students, 8 boys and 8 girls from each class. These 16 students will compete in various activities and challenges with an epic dance battle at the end. If you would like to represent your class, please check your email for more information. Submissions will close tomorrow, October 25th at 11:10 a.m. In other news, congratulations to our girls tennis team who defeated Damaris to finish off a perfect season, winning the Group 2 state title for the second year in a row. Finally, make sure to support your undefeated football team this Friday at 7 on Bob Rogge Memorial Field. They take on Matawan Regional in the first round of the Central Jersey Group 3 tournament. This concludes tonight's student report. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuga. Thank you, Jack. And, so we do have a football player as one of our student representatives who's congratulations and good luck on Friday. And he also mentioned the girls tennis team won states again. So I think it was last Wednesday, Dr. Cascone and I were at the girls. We hosted I think we beat Rumson 4-1 in the sectional finals. Then 2 days later, the girls, and Anuga is actually one of the girls on the tennis team. So she didn't say that. But they beat Damaris and for the state final. So congratulations to them. And the homecoming dance, credit to you guys and all the kids that went. I know there was a few conflicts with other things going on, but this was the first homecoming dance in as long as I've sat up here, but it's I heard it's been a couple of decades since they had a homecoming dance. So it's great that it went really, really well because they had, I know Dr. Kokoda knows, but it's 200 plus kids there. So that next year, I'm sure this is going to start a tradition. And it's pretty cool that you guys were, a lot of those kids that started that tradition. So thank you and congrats. Any questions for our student reps or comments? Okay.
What was the donation that was requested by Anuga?
On Friday, all 4 classes will be like running the snack stand. And so everyone's just asking for donations.
Got it. Okay.
And brings us to a report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. A few updates to give, but prior to that, I want to speak to some learning in which I've been engaging as a superintendent. I never cease to be amazed how, no matter how long one has worked in a profession or is on this earth, one continues to learn. And that is oftentimes accomplished by simply people sharing with you, people providing you with feedback and input. And it isn't always necessarily comfortable to get that feedback. Right. Because sometimes that feedback, it reveals blind spots that we have. Right. It doesn't necessarily mean we're a bad person. It just means that there's certain things we don't see or recognize. And in communicating to our school community about what's taking place in the Middle East, the terrorist attacks that occurred in Israel, the resulting war, and really the impact that that's had on innocent civilians, Jewish civilians, Israeli civilians, Palestinian civilians. But even more troubling is, I think for all of us, is when we see how the ripple effects of that, right? Even in our own country, we see the reactions to that being, whether it be hate speech or violence that's being perpetrated against both people of Jewish faith, people of Muslim faith, and some people who may be Arab and maybe Christian Arab. And so, in my efforts to communicate with the community and to really demonstrate a sensitivity and understanding and a support for all, I found myself exposing these blind spots. And I was thankful to, and I received emails from many Jewish folks. I received emails from, people of Muslim faith, of Arab descent. And it was incredibly instructive for me. And I think gradually, as each communication I put out, I think gradually became more refined. And it was very gratifying to hear from all folks to say, thank you for learning, for listening. But I just want to, to publicly state, that I think it's terribly tragic. You know, the impacts of this, obviously what's going on, the loss of life, but also, how the feelings that it has generated in people of those that come from those groups, fear, right? Not knowing whether just by virtue of what you wear, your religious garb, your appearance, whether you just might simply be an innocent victim of whether it's anti-Semitism or Islamophobia. So I think it's important to what these folks in speaking to me really helped me understand is really putting forth a balanced message to ensure that all of our constituents understand that everyone is welcome, everyone is supported here, and that obviously we're not going to tolerate anything of that nature here, but really with a message of unity and peace, right? I found, and I won't belabor the point too much, but as I mentioned in my letter, my most recent letter, I did find myself feeling particularly, even as my heart went out to those who are living in conflict and war, tremendously blessed to be living in a place of peace, right? And so really renewing all of our commitments to maintaining that peace here and that unity amongst ourselves. So I just wanted to say that. I wanted to extend my thanks to all of the members of our community who reached out to me and provided me with good, constructive feedback on my communication. Because I'm a better communicator for it, and I would argue that I'm a better superintendent and a better person. So thank you. With that said, October has been a very busy month as we observe a number of important weeks in our school district. We've observed both the Week of Kindness and most recently Red Ribbon Week. Week of Kindness speaks for itself, and our schools conducted a host of different activities throughout the school day for our students to observe and emphasize that. And Red Ribbon Week, which is an incredibly important observance, which is really where we emphasize the importance of living drug-free lives and also educate our students on the dangers of drugs. I think that has never been more important nowadays, not only with sort of the normalization and popularization of drug usage and alcohol usage, but also the potential fatal impacts with the infusion of fentanyl, what in the past might have been a teenage moment of indiscretion, now has tragic consequences. So it's never been more critical for us as an educational system to partner with our parents in really emphasizing and encouraging our students to live clean and sober lives. And so really proud of the efforts of our staff and that we've been putting in to work with our young folks along those lines. Would like to wish our football team, I know it was stated by Jake, but I would like to congratulate our football team on an undefeated season, 6 straight shutouts, and appearing in the first round of the playoffs this Friday. We're excited for that. Anu's gone. Anu was actually a member of our tennis team, an outstanding accomplishment, back-to-back group championships. And our soccer team, in addition to winning this evening, also did win the Coaches Cup, which was another tournament they participated in. I believe they defeated Rumson 2-0 in the final of that. So we congratulate them for that. Just a shout out to our thespians. Our student thespians in the Holmdel Theater Guild are hard at work and preparing for, I'm really excited, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is going to be in November. One of my favorite books as a kid, big C.S. Lewis fan. So all members of our community are welcome. So there will be more information put out in terms of tickets, but certainly would invite you. Our kids and staff put on amazing shows here. 2 just parental involvement opportunities, and I'll close with these. I'm really thankful to the more than 60 parents who signed up to do work with us as part of the parental engagement focus of our strategic action plan. We are going to be bringing in parents to participate in focus groups to give us feedback on our website, to help us work on generating a clear chain of command that parents understand how to address issues they might have with our school system, and a host of other action steps. And we're looking forward to engaging our parents to help inform our efforts. And finally, in the district goals, you'll note that one of the things we're looking at is making our high school start time later, really with a critical eye on adolescent mental health and physical well-being. And we're in the process of finalizing sort of a proposal for what that would look like and how that would impact the starting schedule, start times of the other schools. Next week, I'll be putting out a letter. In late November, I believe it is the 29th, we'll be hosting a public forum on that, where we will, in advance of that, we'll share with the community our proposal and be interested in having parents come and guardians come, staff as well, to share feedback on our proposal and help us understand if the approach that we're proposing is the most effective one. That would align the middle school and the high school schedules with the same start times. So we're excited to be moving forward with that. That has been part of, there's legislation in Trenton, though last I heard it was still in committee. It hasn't moved forward, but it is something that has been really in the research and the news of late. So that is my report for this evening, Mr. President, which I respectfully submit into the record.
Thank you, Scott. The only comment I have is I was at the New Jersey School Board show the last 2 days, and to echo Dr. Cascone's comments, this is the first year, and I've been to the show like 19 years. So I've been to the show a lot of years for my work and also for being on a school board. This is the first year I've ever seen them have learning labs or seminars on actually flipping start times. Earlier start times for the older high school kids. So, there was a doctor from University of Pennsylvania talking about it. He did the same a seminar on Tuesday, and then this morning with all the medical research and everything else pointing to it. So it's literally, it feels like it's catching on. It's been talked about for a bunch of years as we were going through the referendum a few years ago. So it'll be interesting to see what this community wants and to see what the feedback is going to be. But I'm glad we're going down that way and going through the whole process. HIB report, Dr. Cascone. HIB report.
Sir. Yes, present the, submit the HIB report as presented in closed session to the board for the record.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to questions or comments from the public on action items only. So if there's anyone that would like to make a comment, my only ask is if at Holmdel residents will be able to speak first, and 3 minutes per person. So when you get to about 3 minutes, either Terrence or our board attorney, Paul Green, will let you know you're 3 minutes and, at least wrap it up at that point. So if there's any comments, please come to the microphone and state your name and address and give us your comments. Yes, ma'am. Come on up. You have to come to the microphone, please. And again, this is on agenda items only. Thank you.
Yeah, I think my son was be bullying, and maybe he under HIB case.
Can you state your name and address, please?
Yeah, my son is Xiuming Zhang, that he just got the award from the school because he got the perfect score in English language, art, and algebra 1 on NJSLA. But I think the perfect score is meaningless. I think meaningless, right?
Okay, Miss, can I ask you, if this is an agenda item only, if it isn't, if you can wait, because at the end of the meeting, after the agenda items, we'll have questions or comments on the public, which I think this would be.
So can I speak my opinion?
No. Right now, I would like you to actually wait on your opinion, because right now what we're discussing is any comments from the public on action items, which is items 1 through 30, if you have anything on that. If you have a comment for later, we absolutely would be more than happy to listen. But right now, if it's not an agenda item later, I'd ask you to wait till after we get through this part of the meeting.
At the end of the meeting.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Everyone's being so nice.
Hello, I don't live in Holmdel. I live in Middletown. But I want to say that
Can we have your name, ma'am?
of course, I'm
Thank
the
you.
Reverend Rose Marie Newberry, and I do live in Middletown, New Jersey. And good evening. I have worked in Holmdel for over 25 years, and I'm friends and colleagues with many Holmdel residents. We are all an extended family, raising our children together, supporting each other. It's hard work being a parent, being an educator, and being a child that is different. Tonight, I stand here in solidarity with Reverend Lauren McGrail and the Holmdel United Church of Christ. The comments made against her and the church during the last Holmdel Board of Ed meeting were mean and hateful. It is very unprofessional for this board to allow that type of rhetoric to happen. I think that a public apology should have been issued. Since one hasn't been, it's very telling about the attitudes of this Board of Ed. I also stand here in solidarity with all trans youth. Policy 5756 has been in place for many years, giving Holmdel educators and school staff guidance when needed. They have been trained on this policy, providing a safe place for the trans youth to attend, learn, and explore. That will soon change after the vote tonight, assuming that it goes like it did last month. I weep with you all, the trans and LGBTQ plus children who are trying to discover your authentic selves while adults behave poorly. This repeal will be hard on you. I fear that other children and some staff will model this BOE's behavior, rejecting your rights and safety. I pray for you. As a Unitarian Universalist minister, I believe that all public institutions need to hear the voices of love from people of faith. My faith calls me to speak in public to protect the inherent worth and dignity of all people, all bodies, all gender. All are sacred and holy. All transgender and non-binary youth are under attack by your desire to repeal policy 5756. New Jersey state data shows that 40% of transgender youth are not supported by their families, and 1 in 10 transgender children are met with physical violence by their parents. These children will not be safe now in their homes. School staff can't possibly know in advance which families are supportive. An August 2023 national survey shows that more than half of all our transgender youth have seriously considered attempting suicide in the last 12 months. The data is
Ma'am,
there.
can I ask you to, it's 3 minutes. Can you finish up?
Yes.
Thank you.
The data is there, but you, the Board of Ed, have decided to ignore the risk. Love is central to my faith. Love for every student should be central to every school and school board. Please show love, not hate, so that all may be safe every day.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Michael Gottesman. I am the founder of the New Jersey Public Education Coalition, and I am here to speak tonight at the request of people who have asked me to be their voice because they are afraid to come out in your community for fear of harassment and intimidation. First thing I want to do is present you with some facts about 5756. Instead of the lies you've been told and continue to repeat. First of all, you are not part of some tidal wave or tsunami that is going through our state with regard to this policy. 9 districts have repealed it. Less than 10, including yourself, have even discussed repeal. Second lie. It prohibits parental notification. And all of you on that board who have read the entire policy know that that's a lie. What it says is a teacher cannot immediately out the student to their parents. And what the policy does is creates a child-centered approach with a goal of creating acceptance between parents and child so that that can eventually be established. What it does is keeps your board in compliance with over 24 federal and state laws protecting the transgender community, and make sure that you don't end up being on the wrong side of a lawsuit from the Attorney General or from a parent or student alleging discrimination or a violation of civil rights. What it does is it deals with the pocketbook issue. Yeah, Hanover, you think they're good? They're already approaching $100,000 in legal fees. That creates a budget gap in your school district, a budget gap that has to be filled next year by increased property taxes. And it gives your district a black eye. So less people want to move here and property values go down. But worst of all, when board member Mann states at the last meeting that transgender is an experiment and that transgender people follow the religion of transgenderism, well, that comes straight from QAnon. I'll give you the timestamp, Mr. Mann. Straight from Proud Boys. And it is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. And when Mr. Wall says there
Excuse
are
me,
boys
sir,
and girls.
when you're addressing the board, you have to address the board president.
Okay.
So please not.
And Mr.
specify.
President,
Thank you.
when a member of your board
And
says,
your time's up, so please wrap it up. Thank you, sir. It's 3 minutes. That's the way it goes.
okay, well, I'll finish in the second
Thank
half.
you.
But
Yes.
let me finish that thought. When he says that there are boys and girls and that's it, despite the fact that, in my opinion, he violates the protections guaranteed by federal and state law and ethics, those send a particularly bad message to students who are already a part of this transgender marginalized community. And I'll finish in the second.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Craig Peterson. I'm the Associate Conference Minister for the Central Atlantic of the Conference of the United Church of Christ. And based on the remarks made about the United Church of Christ at the last Board of Education meeting, we felt it necessary to be here. I want to speak to you about a pattern we see in the United Church of Christ in these campaigns. We hear a lot about parents' rights, but in these orchestrated campaigns, we hear little about parents' responsibility. Well, I want to hear you to hear a bit of a letter written by a woman who 2 weeks ago would have hooped and hollered when she heard some of the inflammatory comments made years ago. This woman, whose name was Mary Griffith, made it very clear to her son, Bobby, where she stood on these issues. So much so that she crushed his spirit. And about 18 months after he left home in Portland, Oregon, he walked up to a highway overpass and jumped off in front of a semi. Now, unlike many parents, Mary accepted responsibility for the roles that her views played in her son's death. I want to offer a snippet of that letter in hopes that none of you will have to write a similar letter following the death of a Holmdel student or perhaps one of your own children or grandchildren. She wrote, "To all the Bobbies and Janes out there, I say these words to you as I would to my own precious child. Please, don't give up hope on life or yourself. You are very special to me, and I am working very hard to make this life a better and safer place for you to live. I firmly believe, though I did not back then, that my son Bobby's suicide is the end result of fear and ignorance within some faith communities, and consequently within society, our public schools, and our own families. What a travesty of God's love for children to grow up believing themselves to be evil, or as one of your Board of Education members said, mutilated? Is it any wonder our young people give up on love and life as Bobby did, and the hope of ever achieving or receiving the validation they deserve as beautiful human beings? As a result of my son's death by suicide, I have joined other caring people to try to make a pathway with knowledge and understanding within our public school systems, a pathway that in time may be traveled with dignity and freedom from fear for LGBTQIA+ students and any student subject to discrimination. Promise me you will keep trying, for my son Bobby gave up on love. I hope you won't. With love, Mary Griffith. So Board of Education members, I pray that your actions won't cause other children to give up on life by denying them the life-giving support they need. For as clergy, I don't know how many more funerals we can perform for your children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Bensley. I live in Hillsborough. I'm here tonight to share my perspective as someone who has worked with children for almost 35 years. First in mental health settings as a mental health specialist, and then as a clinical social worker. For the past 20 years, I was an elementary school counselor in Old Bridge. I retired in June. My work with hundreds and hundreds of kids taught me quite a few things. Kids are highly perceptive and usually know more about themselves and others than we adults give them credit for. They size everyone up quickly. Kids want to belong, feel seen, and be accepted for who they are. Children want to please their parents, and they know very clearly what is and what is not acceptable at home. Most kids are straight and cisgender, but some are not. LGBTQ+ kids and trans kids exist. And most of them, like straight kids, realize who they are before graduating from high school. As much as I wish it was different, LGBTQ+ students may have a more complicated path to adulthood, especially if they don't have the support they need. Anti-LGBTQ stigma still exists, and kids are well aware of it. Fortunately, most children have close relationships at home and can comfortably express their thoughts and feelings. For those kids, sharing that they think they are LGBTQ or trans may not be much of a struggle. For other kids, it's much, much tougher. Many want to tell their parents, but aren't sure how. Some may fear they'll disappoint or upset the adults at home, or those adults might have mental health issues or other problems, and kids don't want to add to their stress. Some kids just aren't ready. For a small minority, telling caregivers that they're anything other than straight and cisgender could result in rejection, being thrown out of their homes, or even verbal or physical aggression. We can't assume that all kids live with people who are able to provide the safety and security they need and have a right to. Policy 5756 was designed to protect those children who need it, not to usurp parents' rights. Children have rights too. Isn't it the responsibility of districts to ensure that all students are safe and secure and respected in school? Shouldn't students be able to view school staff as someone they can trust? Those of us who work with kids want parents to be involved and informed and to work together. We hope for it. I'm deeply troubled by the us versus them view of parents and educators that some people present. That helps no one. In my experience, when students share something deeply personal with an adult at school, it's usually the kid's decision to do so because they trust that person, not because the adult is trying to get information to hide from parents. In the majority of situations, school staff seek to involve parents or work with the student toward that goal. 5756 does not prohibit this. I ask that this board can carefully consider the impact that repealing 5756 will have on an already vulnerable and marginalized group of students. Your oath and code of ethics is supposed to ensure that your decisions meet the needs of all students and that you frame policies only after careful consideration and understanding of the needs of those they impact. Transgender and other LGBTQ students are depending on you to do just that tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. I'm Stephen Polly, and I'm a resident here in Holmdel. Tonight, you're considering the rescission of Board Policy 5756. This will have a dramatic impact on the safety, mental health, and stability of the LGBTQIA+ community in your school district. It will leave your entire staff with no guidance on how to address the needs of the trans community. You will be sending a message that this community does not deserve the protections required by state and federal law. There is already a marginalized segment with a high risk of kids considering suicide and of those who succeed in doing so. Students at risk because of messaging saying they are broken and unwanted. Eliminating policy 5756 is a scorched earth strategy motivated by a national political agenda. According to new research of LGBTQ teens aged 13 to 17 by Trevor Project, 41% seriously consider attempting suicide in the past year versus 22% of all teens. 14% made a suicide attempt. That's more than twice the rate of suicide attempts among all US teens, which is only 9%. 81% wanted mental health care in the past year. However, only 56% of those youth were able to access care. As board members, you are ethically and legally obligated to be doing what is in the best interest of all children, including those who you may not fit into your personal view of society. Those students who choose a path different than your own, you must do right by all these children. Do any of you truly understand the community? Have you made an attempt to do so? Do you have any expertise or understanding of this community? I ask that all of you make an attempt to do so before taking any action that will have a negative impact upon them. The New Jersey Division of Civil Rights has three 2-hour training modules. They include sessions on affirming LGBTQIA+ identities in school, understanding the needs of LGBTQIA+ youth, and having anti-bias discussions in class. Have you taken these classes? Until you have, you cannot fulfill your obligations to act in the best interests of the LGBTQIA+ community, and you should not be taking drastic measures that will negatively impact this community. Now is the time for every one of you to educate yourselves, because none of you can truly say that you're protecting and serving all children until you have the knowledge to do so. We can provide you with the information on the training. Now it is up to you to show that you care about the health of all of your students, not just the ones who you may identify with. Please take the courses and report back to your community. Also, remember that our students are in the best position to know whether their own parents or guardians need to be informed about their lives.
So we're at,
Their safety
can you
depends-
wrap it up? Thank you.
I'm wrapping up. They know what their parents need to be informed about their lives. Their safety depends on those decisions. Parental rights do not supersede individual rights, the individual rights of the students. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pete, can you ask him, sir, can you email those videos to the board, please? Thank you.
My name is Miranda Lukeman. I'm from Rumsden. I'm a trans woman, and I'm here to speak for trans people and trans kids specifically. I just like to cite a few statistics from Human Rights Campaign. Only 24% of LGBTQ youth say they can definitely be themselves at home, and only 32% of transgender and non-binary youth found their home to be gender affirming. 48% of LGBTQ youth say their families make them feel bad for being LGBTQ. 67 here, the families make negative comments about LGBTQ people. LGBTQ youth experience homelessness at a rate more than twice the rate of their non-LGBTQ plus peers. Young Black men and transgender people experience the highest rates of homelessness. LGBT youth are 7 times more likely to participate in survival sex than their non-LGBTQ peers. LGBTQ youth are nearly 3 times more likely to attempt suicide than their non-LGBTQ peers. To rescind 5756 would put the health and welfare of trans youth in jeopardy. The backlash against 5756 is nothing but right-wing fear-mongering of the worst kind. Taking away these protections for trans kids is immoral, cruel, and vile. I don't know how your minds are made up already or not, but I like to direct my comments to some of you who still might be undecided. Your vote tonight will be one of the most important decisions you ever make as a board member. And you have a choice to defend trans children from abuse or take away protections that will expose trans children's kids to more trauma. And I find it interesting that we talked about bullying tonight, and by taking away this policy, you expose trans kids to more bullying. So I have one question for you. Do you want an affirming school that supports and nourishes all students, or do you want a school that specifically targets the safety of trans kids? And please recognize the lie that this is all about parental rights. This is all about irrational fears stoked by right-wing extremists. Authoritarians need scapegoats to stoke fear and gain power. A perfect illustration of this kind of thinking took place at our last meeting, where one of the board members ignorantly and maliciously spoke about genital mutilation. I don't know why some cis men are so obsessed about the genitals of trans people. It's kind of weird, but his comment was totally egregious and had absolutely nothing to do with 5756. But it does illuminate the aim to demonize trans people, including vulnerable school kids. So you have a choice. You can vote for empathy, love, support for your trans students, or you can vote for the dark, bigoted, nasty vision that some of the people want to impose on your school. The choice is yours.
Thank you.
Will this work like that? No, oh, can you make it a little lower? Thank you. This is what happens when you're height challenged. Good evening. My name is Louise Walpin. I'm a retired psychiatric nurse practitioner with over 25 years experience, and I've treated many children and families from Holmdel over the years, although I live in South Brunswick. I've married, and I have 3 adult children and 3 grandchildren. Today, I'll be speaking with my psychiatric nurse practitioner hat on, although my mother hat never leaves. I'm going to tell you about 2 of my clients to give faces to the statistics you have heard tonight, and I'm sure last month. M was a 9-year-old trans female who came out to her parents 6 months before I met her because a trusted adult suggested she should. She had a good relationship with her parents, but was afraid they wouldn't accept the news. She was right. Her disclosure was met with invalidation, anger, and threats. Her parents told her if she continued to live on that path, she'd be dead to them. Faced with having to choose between living as her true self or losing her parents, she attempted to hang herself. That attempt was interrupted, and she was hospitalized. But even then, parents refused to discuss her gender identity. There was no history of abuse, so DCP&P said intervention was not warranted. She was sent home after hospitalization. She has since attempted suicide several times. I've heard a lot this election cycle about parental right to know. I'm a mother and a grandmother, so of course I agree. But contrary to what you have heard, policy 5756 does not endorse keeping secrets from parents. Rather, it serves to protect trans children by helping them traverse this difficult journey safely. Imagine how you and your staff would feel if you had outed M to her parents because there was no prior evidence of domestic conflict, and then she attempted suicide. In my professional experience, if a child is afraid to tell their parents, there's a reason. The second client is an 11-year-old trans male who was hospitalized on a monthly basis. He had begun to menstruate, and in addition to hormonal mood changes, experienced a monthly increase in gender dysphoria. The outpatient therapist had informed the parents that S was suicidal, but did not disclose details as per law for counselors. The counselors can't divulge details other than the child is at risk to themselves or others. I worked closely with S, and during the second hospitalization, he felt safe coming out to his parents with our support. Resources were provided, and after the third hospitalization, parents consulted an endocrinologist who recommended puberty blockers and obtained parental consent, as is required by law.
Ma'am, it's over 3 minutes. Would you mind wrapping it up, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
I urge all the board members to keep these two young children in minds and hearts. Please do not repeal 5756, which provides necessary guidance and support to your staff. Please do not force children to out themselves to their parents. Help them to realistically explore their feelings and appraise safety until they feel the time is right to disclose and achieve positive, healthy outcome. Their mental health and their lives depend upon this. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, my name is Carolyn, and I'm from Matawan. Well, I've waited a long time tonight to say that I am here because I do oppose 5756. I think there are a lot of good reasons for that. I do not appreciate being labeled as adversarial or like somebody who is maybe hateful or whatever other adjective you'd want to use for somebody who does not believe that somebody can change their gender. I know I just heard her talk about a man having periods. Sorry, that is not possible. These surgeries that people are having, if you look at what's happening in other countries, Sweden and England, I think it was England that Tavis Clinic that was the biggest trans surgical center in the world, they have shut that down. It's no longer open because of the adverse effects that they were noting were happening to the patients. Many patients having surgeries and then still committing suicide. When we indulge kids in a belief that they can change their gender, when we know scientifically it's not possible. There are underlying causes for them being uncomfortable or unhappy with their gender, and it's not an assigned gender. It is what they're born with, and it's determined at conception. They're either a boy or a girl. There aren't, 15, 20, 30, however many different genders. This is science. And to muddy the waters with the new, knowledge or understanding, concocted baloney that you can change your sex is just leading these kids down a dead end road. And I think your decision has to begin with truth. And there is no truth to the belief that somebody by getting hormone blockers or having yes, mutilation surgery. That surgery does not change anyone's sex. It mutilates them. The hormone blockers will make them sterile for life. The only people who benefit from this are doctors who create a lifelong patient when they begin these treatments on children, and parents must be involved in that. If Tylenol cannot be dispensed to a minor without a parent's consent, why in the world would we allow children to make decisions, life altering and lifelong decisions about something like this without involving a parent? It makes no sense.
Can you
So-
wrap it up, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I'm just here because very, very much opposed to 5756. I think a decision to rescind it is a decision on the right side of history. And yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Gold. I live in Jackson, New Jersey, and I serve a synagogue as its rabbi in Lakewood. I'm here because I support LGBTQ plus community wherever they live. I urge this body not to repeal its good and sound policy that you adopted in 2019, not that long ago. The reason is simple. When a child is ready to come out, that is the right time for him or her to do so. No one has the right to delegate that decision to anyone else, whatever your beliefs about transgender is. My support for transgender people is deeply rooted in Jewish texts and teachings. The Torah teaches me that all people are created in B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. The earliest rabbis built on this teaching. When humans stamp coins, they said, with one seal, they are all identical. But the Holy One stamps every human being uniquely so that none is like the other. From this, we learn that all of us are created uniquely, but still in the divine image. Whenever governments see fit to force all its citizens to conform to what they see as the ideal human being, people face persecution and they suffer. You've already heard evidence of that this evening. I believe that all of us here have a deep concern for children and want children and parents to have good, loving, and trusting relationships. We want what the prophet Malachi promises, a future where the hearts of the parents are turned to the children and the hearts of the children to their parents. But codifying an affirmative duty to notify parents will not produce Malachi's vision. It will harm some students who fear their parents' reactions by driving them into silence because there is nowhere to turn for help and guidance. And in a worst-case scenario, puts them at risk from parents whom they feel will reject and possibly harm them. Please do not repeal a policy that gives both students and staff the ability to choose when and how to bring parents into the discussion, which ultimately I think we all want. Please leave your very good and enlightened policy in place and let our kids talk to their parents when they are ready. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My name is Jennifer Woodruff, and I'm a resident of Marlboro. Thank you, board, for your commitment and time. It's appreciated. We know you spend lots of hours, and it doesn't go unnoticed. I applaud you also for abolishing 5756 last month, and I hope on the second vote you proceed to do the same thing. The 5756 policy gives special rights to children who might be confused by their gender. And I accentuate might be because the majority of children would not be in this position if it wasn't being promoted by social media, far left woke philosophy, and affirmed by the schools. It is never a good idea to have special policies for a particular group of people. This only leads to division and grounds for discrimination suits, which are already happening. It's not an accident that gender dysphoria has increased by 400% in the last 10 years. There are sinister people who, for self-serving reasons, whether it be political or financial, are grooming children when they are most vulnerable and impressionable. Why else would this all of a sudden become a thing? Children are born either male or female. This will not change, and it never will. As the woman said before, no one can change their sex, regardless of the amount of medicines or surgery. Why would anyone want to promote or even affirm an ideology that is false and will only lead to a child's lifetime of unhappiness with a perception of never being in the right body? We wonder why the youth health crisis is the worst it's ever been. Could it be that the children are being fed garbage through the internet and are confused and unhappy with themselves because they are being told they're something they are not? How sad is that? School administrators will argue that they are not affirming or promoting transgenderism when we know that the curriculum, the reading material, and school policies, such as this one, are doing just that. I understand there are some children that have biological aberrations and they need special counseling consideration and probably some kind of hormone therapy. However, this is an exception and amounts to a small percentage of the population. I know it's impossible to stop the deviant predators and the immorality that is encouraged on social media platforms, but our hope is for parents to limit the amount of time spent on devices and monitor what the kids are watching. But in addition, the schools need to restrict the student access to their cell phones. Everyone's so concerned about the children and their safety and inclusivity, respect and kindness, yet most of the bullying, as was evidenced before, is done during school time, and that's through Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok videos and photos.
Ma'am, can I ask you to wrap it up, please?
Okay, it
Thank
boggles
you.
my mind that phones are allowed in class. We wonder why kids are ranking so poorly, not here in Holmdel, but across the nation compared to other countries. The defenders of government monopoly in the schools believe they have the right to raise other people's children as they see fit. The woke philosophy, affirming gender ideology, inappropriate sex curriculum, and keeping parents in the dark is an intentional agenda and is driving a wedge between parents and their children. The intent is to destroy the nuclear family, its values, and indoctrinate our children.
Thank you,
Children do
ma'am.
not belong to the government. Thank you.
No, that was 3 minutes and 28 seconds. Thank you very much. Thank you. Everyone's been given over 3 minutes by a little bit. I'm offering latitude for everyone. You could take out your timer as well, sir, and you will have the same time as we have. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Ron Mack. I'm from Matawan. I want to thank you for your service. I see you're here very late at night, and I'm against 5756. There are two things in this room: an elephant in the room and a gorilla in the room. Not once tonight have you heard the word detransitioning, have you? Chloe Cole, some of you already know this story. Google it. She was encouraged to go down the transgender road, and when she was a minor, when she became an adult 5 years later, she's suing all kinds of people. So Paul Green, JD, take the lead in this and protect this school from what's coming 5 years from now. This is a new phenomenon, $2.1 billion industry. And now the lawsuits are following up and they're just starting to come. This isn't theory. Just last week in New Jersey, a father, Frederick Short Jr., sued Cherry Hill over the same thing. There's a law in California, it's just cascading the lawsuits coming down. Protect this community from 5 years from now, from this detransitioning. Now, the gorilla in the room is the word minor. 95% of the children you're representing in this school are minors. If they want to do this when they become adults, that's a different story. But minors, we're here to protect minors. Minors shouldn't be put in this position to be making these kind of life-changing decisions. So I thank you for what you're doing. And that law firm of Kelly Chang in California that's exploding with these lawsuits. The school staff at any level could be liable as an accomplice to endangerment due to diagnosis from a non-medical professional. If the counselors here don't have medical degrees, they have absolutely no business counseling minors on transgender surgeries or going down this road, because it's going to come back. It's going to come back. Detransitioning, anybody can look at it, but it's that gorilla in the room that nobody's talking about, and now it's coming big time. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank
Voted
you.
down.
Hello, my name is Pam Burke. I live in Middletown, and I often tell people who ask me, should I move to Holmdel or Middletown? I usually say Holmdel. The schools are fantastic, and Middletown schools are good too. And my kids went through the public schools and are very successful. I didn't come with a planned speech tonight because I wanted to listen to what you were hearing and what you were thinking. And I was really optimistic throughout the whole beginning part of this meeting tonight, because so many of the things I heard each of you say are consistent with the current policy. You are compassionate. You spent an hour talking about bullying and the importance of having even stronger procedures and more training and more education for parents and more safety for the kids. And that you had this idea that maybe things have to be able to be reported anonymously because it's not always safe for a child to speak up to their parent or to their teacher or someone else about what they're experiencing in the classroom. I was also really encouraged by the superintendent talking about how he learned from listening. And he had to take a courageous stand and communicate when all the information isn't always perfect, and had the humility to say, well, maybe I was wrong with how I said it then. I understand better now. Give me another chance. And I feel what the board does when they have a second chance to consider something is they've had time to think about it, to talk to people who are really affected by it, to skip the rhetoric and get human about it, and take pride in listening and hearing and being able to change their mind once they've considered things. So I'm really optimistic that the vote will be different this time, that you will continue to consider what's needed to make the school an even safer place, that maybe additional policies, maybe refinements on policies, but it's not rejection of a policy that has served 500 districts in the state already. I have to tell you, my oldest child is non-binary, trans feminine. They went through public school without being able to talk about their experience and who they were. They were bullied. They did have very supportive parents, luckily. And if you don't have a friend or a family member who's been through the experience of their kid coming out to you and telling you something that they may not be sure you want to hear, or may not have the words for describing it, and they need to talk to another teacher or somebody. How do I talk to my parents about this? I want to be called Shay, not Daniel. That's who I am. I want my teachers to be able to refer to me as they, because, hey, look, I play the flute and I do engineering. I do.
Man, we're over 3 minutes.
I'm
Would you
over
mind
3
wrapping it up?
All right, so
Thank you.
I obviously didn't have a prepared speech, so I didn't have my timing down, but I think you have an opportunity to set a new standard in this state for a board that really knows how to listen to the people in your community.
Thank you.
Good evening and thank you. My name is Kim Lindley. I'm a former special education teacher from Old Bridge. And the HIB program has been into teaching at least 10 plus years or more. So we were always instructed about assessing the needs of a child. So tonight I really want to discuss a article from the Mental Health Daily, and it has to do with the brain and the development. And a person's brain development has not been totally defined, but it's at 27 at least for where it was defined. So important part of the brain is the prefrontal cortex. Changes occurring between ages and 25 are essential to a continued process of brain development that started during puberty. The prefrontal cortex doesn't have nearly the functional capacity at 18 as it does at 25. This article has a lot to go through, so I'm just got the highlighted points. So hopefully I'll be able to communicate what you need. This means that some people have major struggles with impulsive decisions and planning behavior to reach a goal. The brain reward system tends to reach a high level of activation during puberty, then gradually drifts back to normal activation when a person reaches the age of 25. So another section of this is called, what does the prefrontal cortex do? One part of attention is attention. The ability to focus on one thing while ignoring distraction is a function of our prefrontal cortex. Another important section is complex planning. The prefrontal cortex region is responsible for complex planning. Anytime you set a goal that requires some degree of planning, your prefrontal region is at work, planning as tasks in your day, developing a business plan. This region is responsible. An undeveloped prefrontal region means that your planning capabilities have been solidified. Another important section is logical thinking. Justifying behaviors based off emotions rather than logic is common among teens. When the prefrontal cortex fully develops, logical thinking simultaneously improves. This means that you'll be better at rationalizing and making smarter choices. It also means that your ability to write and solve math problems will improve. Another important section I felt was personality development. Your personality is directly expressed based off your prefrontal cortex. Without proper stimulation, you may struggle with identity issues and developing a favorable personality. Since personal development continues through your 20s, you may want to consider how environmental inputs may affect who you are. Short-term memory. Your short-term memory of function is influenced by the prefrontal cortex when still in development. Your short-term memory is not as good as it would be by the age of 25. As the brain continues to mature, your cognitive function and memorization capacity will improve. So by this article, it's just telling you how you feel like a teenager, there's so many things that affect it. So in order to make this important decision, all these factors that should be included, I know it's probably my bell, yes?
That is what Pastor Bell, yes, ma'am.
So thank you very much for your time and efforts, and I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Hope you can hear me. Yeah, okay. My name is Mindy Kim. I live in Holmdel. First of all, I want to apologize to Reverend McGrail for being attacked last meeting. I think that it reflects poorly on the Holmdel board when the members of the board start slandering reverends who come to speak their minds on the children. So please, let's refrain from doing that. And I personally apologize for that. That's what I wanted to say. Dr. Coscone tonight has said unity and peace. And I like that theme, and I came in here to speak about unity and peace. What are we doing here at 9 o'clock at night, once every month, talking about transgender youth, who are about 7 kids in Holmdel? All this time wasted. We could be talking about academics, math, science, robotics, enrichment classes, sports, that every parent agrees that we want to focus and elevate. What happened to the discussion of academic excellence? So I am here to say, to please, let's be moderate. Let moderate voices prevail, not extremist voices in the left or the right. but in the center. Let's rule from the center. We don't need people denying the existence of gay, bi, transgender kids because it's a fact. It's a fact they're out. The reason why the numbers are high is because they're more accepted. They too are made in the image of God. We know that. We need to know also for accountability purposes, who put this policy on our school board agenda? No parent has come in here and said, oh, I called the school to ask about a policy and I wasn't told. They didn't tell me what about my kid. Nobody has said that. So why was this put on the school board agenda? And somebody here who's a candidate on the board has said, this is just the beginning. That frightens me and everybody in Holmdel, that this is gonna be our future. It's very clear who is bringing politics in our school, okay? Let's leave politics out and let's return to academics, which is what all the parents ask. As for policy 5756, this policy exists, obviously, as a suggestion. It was created and passed by Governor Chris Christie, the Republican governor. It was in place in Holmdel for 6 years. It's just a mere suggestion when a transgender kid comes and says to the counselor, I think I might be trans or I have conflicting feeling.
Ma'am, would you
Children
mind
have
wrapping it
civil
up,
rights
please?
too. Okay, I'll wrap it up.
Thank you.
Children have civil rights too. When they're troubled, we want them to go to the counselors and talk about it, right? We don't want them to start calling our parents, right? We want them to protect our children and address their concerns. They are the front line to guiding our kids. If you pull too much to the right, there'll be equal push to the left. Just remember that action begets a reaction. So instead of wasting our time and energy on political issues at school, let's focus on what we all want, which is to focus on education.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. And please keep 5756.
Just a touch low. Is that okay? I did that okay? I work in sound. I'm Cantor John Salma. I'm the cantor at Beth Am Shalom in Lakewood, New Jersey. I live in Summit, New Jersey. And I'm here tonight because I am the parent of a trans male college student. A few years ago, I was the parent of a teen who was self-harming, depressed, angry, self-loathing, and with suicidal thoughts. And I didn't understand why. The suicide and homicide rates for trans youth are among the highest of any group of at-risk youth. Make no mistake, for some of our kids, this policy will be a matter of life or death. The school my child attended was accepting of differences and a supportive haven for kids in crisis who felt they had no safe person to tell at home. Those policies saved lives and continue to save lives. Schools need to support all our kids, especially the most vulnerable. And to do that, they need guidance for how to support the kids in crisis and permission to be trustworthy to those kids who feel they have no one else to trust. Schools need to be a place where kids learn not to harm, bully, harass, or ostracize those who are different. That only happens when teachers model inclusion, respect, and acceptance, and protect the most vulnerable students against hate, bullying, and ostracism. Every child who is struggling to feel good about themselves, and that is at some time every child, needs understanding, support, and protection. In some ideal world, all children feel safe and supported and understood by their parents. But that's not the real world. When they don't and they fall into crisis, school can be a last chance safety net against abuse, bullying, self-harm, running away, or suicide. No school policy will make your child gay or trans or whatever. Lack of school policy, however, can result in a child in need of life-saving support encountering
only hate and intolerance. Please help save and protect those of our children. And indeed, I hope we feel all these children are our children who so desperately need saving and protection. I urge you to support Policy 5756, consistent with providing a safe, supportive, and inclusive learning environment for all students, and especially those most at risk. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
I'm David Drukaroff. I'm from Lakewood, and my rabbi and cantor have just spoken. This is my speech, which I wrote to a different Board of Education, but it covers the same thing. The motivation behind repealing this policy, which I support, is as follows. We are the only true religion, and we know what is good for you, whether you agree or not. Those who disagree are heretic infidels, who must be saved from themselves, or we will send them to hell. We intend to use the power of the state through the Board of Education to force our beliefs on everyone because we know what's good for you better than you do. This country was founded by people who wanted everyone to have religious freedom. In order that everyone have religious freedom and prevent religious warfare, they separated religion from the state. You have to decide whether what you want to do is so important that you don't mind destroying this country, because you just might do so. And you need to also realize something, that that the brain and the genitalia don't necessarily match. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you everyone for staying late to hear all of our opinions. My name is Alicia Unison. I live at 8 Riverside Lane. I have a master's in counseling. I have 2 children here in the Holmdel School District. Tonight, we know you are considering rescinding the policy of 5756 relating to the transgender student population. Before you make any decision on the policy, I want to make sure you have the facts. Do you believe, or have you been told at any point, that 5756 outlaws parental notification? If that is your belief, you are mistaken. What it really does is take a child-centered approach and provides the district with a procedure that the district can follow, depending upon whether the student in question wants the parents to know or not. It is actually designed to formulate a process by which parents can eventually be notified and by which a student's safety is also protected and by which students can be accepted into their homes rather than by possibly being rejected by parents and potentially ejected from their homes. You must ask yourself this question: why did the student choose to come to a teacher, guidance counselor, school psychologist, or member of the administration rather than his or her or their own parents? What makes the student conclude that there will not be acceptance at that home? Will there be a potential reaction that could be potentially traumatic to this student? That is what the policy will prevent from happening. Additionally, whether Strauss Esme indicated the policy was mandatory or not is really irrelevant. They drafted the policy in 2015 to ensure that our district is in compliance with the policy. So you would not be violating federal and state laws, as well as the guidance handed down by the state of New Jersey and its departments. And that's a lot of different laws, and it protects our district from many things. Take a look at the list of laws. I'm not sure if you guys have seen them all. I have 2 pages of them. Are we prepared to review this list every time a question of sexual identity comes up in our schools? If you retain and follow the policy, you will protect the taxpayers of our district. You will protect yourselves from lawsuit, which would divert a taxpayer dollar designated for teaching children and be used to pay a lawyer instead. And that creates a budget gap that has to be filled by next year's budget and increased property taxes. It also reflects our school district, potentially making families look elsewhere to live. So when you remove the policy, you leave your staff with no guidance on how to avoid lawsuits. They don't know how to act in these situations because they will be looking at a blank slate. I can ask you, can our district afford the cost and the expenses of a civil rights case? Finally, think about the message you are sending to the students who are part of an already marginalized student community. Board of Education members, let's get back to education. Progress over politics. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Dan Finn, Aberdeen. Thank you very much for your service to this community. And thank you for your discernment that you showed last month in voting to repeal 5756. I know it's hard, but you have to discern between emotional arguments and logical facts. 5756 alienates parents, causes confusion, and is a huge distraction from an environment conducive to learning. Worse, it does not help the very population of students it portends. In fact, it alienates them as well and creates resentment. But all that is not the worst of it. Some have been saying there is no indoctrination agenda, but that is patently false. 5756 states administrators and teachers are to affirm gender choices without question, without diagnosis, or any other criteria. So let's let that sink in. And somebody earlier talked about affirming or promoting. Look at the synonyms for affirm. It is promoting. And that is indoctrination, or there is no such thing. Teachers and staff should not be in this position at all. As somebody else also said, they're not medical professionals. This is outside the role of the public education. So is over-sexualization of young children. And I would say that loss of modesty, sexually transmitted diseases, and emotional and physical scars are going to result without pushback and eliminating this bad policy. None of that spells success. I also want to say that I have been offended by this community and this agenda hijacking God's given rainbow, and now suicide statistics and a few other things. My son killed himself in 2007. There was no such narrative as this gender dysphoria, or you can have a choose your own identity among young children. But there was and is mental illness. Heredity is a big part of that. And it is an area that needs more attention. I applaud you for your discernment, and I pray that you will follow through with resolve to put this policy where it belongs, and then focus on back to basics education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Barbara Singer, 5 Deerfield Road. I spoke last time, so I'm not going to repeat those points. I do want to say my experience in Holmdel with 2 kids having gone through the system here and one still in high school is that we are a very accepting community, which maybe some people who are not from Holmdel don't realize, but I think overall that has been my experience here. I do want to clear up something that's come up a couple of times at these meetings regarding Chloe Cole, because it's making it sound like that's a big lawsuit that's going to affect the board. So not knowing that story, I did look it up after the first time it was brought up by someone here. So if you didn't have time, I'll just tell you very briefly. Her parents supported her transition while she was a minor. Later, about 1.5 years later, she felt she should not have moved down that path so fast. Who she sued were the doctors involved, because they were the ones who didn't follow the protocol as far as, there's psychological steps you have to take and all of that. So I looked up the lawsuit, went through the caption. It did not involve the Board of Ed. It involved the doctors who were not doing what they should have been doing. And it was a case where her parents were supportive of her. She has testimony before Congress. She speaks really well. It was very interesting to actually hear from her what she went through on her end. So I really more want to address, I think, some of the statements I've heard from everyone here, because it sounds like we do handle these situations that have come up. And as somebody said, it's, been so many, and that when this policy is rescinded, we would still be handling these situations likewise. I'd like to point out, if we've been handling these situations well, we've been doing that under this policy. So the question is, why are we rescinding it now? If there is something specific in it you want to change, leave this policy here, because I haven't really heard any substantive reason to pull it right now. Write your new policy and then address it at that time, and we can avoid any of the pitfalls and everybody's accusations on both sides of lawsuits, no matter which way we go. I think the only reason I really heard about rescinding it had to do with the company misleading multiple boards of eds as to whether this was mandatory or discretionary. I don't think we should make our decisions based on a label. That sounds to me just like an excuse. We don't take our unhappiness out on other companies on substantive issues within this community. There should be more of a basis. So to me, if you're voting to rescind this right now, that's just indicating there's some underlying motive here, because like I've said, we've been working under this policy, and by everyone's opinions, we've been doing a good job under it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jill Perez, 6 Sweetbriar Lane. So I've just been listening to everybody, and I just am looking at my own timeline in the sense I worked for Rutgers for 10 years. And when I first started in 2008, I taught a course called Intro to Education. And during that time, and a couple of years later, 2010, there was a student named Tyler Clemente that took his life. And again, he was a gay student, and it was a very traumatic event on campus. And the course that I was teaching was now changed to individual cultural diversity in the classroom. And in that course, we now started teaching about gender identity. And it went into first Klinefelter, where, some children are born with XXY chromosomes, and Turner syndrome, where children are born with just one X chromosome. And, these are true genetic conditions. But as it evolved, it became into this more gendered fluid class. And, I wanted to do my part because, of course, I wanted to, prevent another Tyler Clemente from happening. And so, we are a community that cares. I don't want anybody to think that any of us want to see children harmed. And of course, we want them to be comfortable in their own skin. But as we begin to connect the dots and we look at policies, right? So the question before was, why are we rescinding it? Well, maybe because we have more information now. So in 2013, I'm now attending workshops about, as a supervisor, going out, observing student teachers, we should be writing MX instead of MR or MS, identifying the student. And you begin to see this progression, things that didn't occur decades ago and are really rapidly occurring. And there was an older gentleman who had retired from education who stood up and said, I don't agree with this. I just think that we're allowing children to start dictating things. And we need to be the adults, right? This is many issues, right? Like smartphones started coming out, and all of a sudden students don't want to answer emails and be as professional. And he starts saying, no, we are the adults. We're the ones teaching them. We're leading them. These are going to be the teachers of our children. And if we don't have some sort of standards, we're going to see some issues happening. And I began to question the curriculum that I started teaching. And I also started to think about the elders in my life and the wisdom that they shined on me, because I was actually very fortunate to be raised with great grandparents and grandparents. And my grandmother used to always say that adulthood was redefined in the 70s. It used to be age 21, you were considered your parents' responsibility because the brain is developing. And so now we're letting children make these decisions about their body that are going to be permanent. And that's very concerning to me. And I see this from many angles, right? I think we all want to be caring and loving adults. But as the adults, we understand that they may want to have children later on. And what do we allow them to do? And I do just want to say that my very first year of teaching was 2001 in Jersey City. And my students witnessed September 11th attacks. And within that year, the amount of antidepressants being prescribed just quadrupled, right? All of a sudden, I was in middle school, high school, all these kids are on these drugs. Then a couple of years later, I see another push for pharmaceutical products.
Ms. Perez, can you wrap it up,
Yes.
please? Thank you.
And I'll just tell you, that pharmaceutical product happens to be breast implants. And then many of those girls regretted doing that. So what I see right now is pharmaceuticals really cashing in because they'll have customers for life. And we need to start seeing how all of this is connected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Don. I'm from Neptune. I'm a parent. I have a ninth grader daughter. And first of all, I want to say to the board that I applaud your decision last month to abolish 5756. It's a disgraceful policy. Like I said, I'm a parent and a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old. And if for anybody to think that they have my daughter's best interests above and beyond me or my wife, that's absurd. That's frankly absurd. This is not a safe policy for my daughter or for any child. That's not what I see or what I hear. This is not about safety of my child or any other child. This is about a culture war that, in the words of Governor Murphy, this is a culture war to destroy the family, to destroy the parent-child relationship. Nobody's born transgender. Nobody's born transgender. They're groomed transgender. And this school, and this is a policy, this is a culture war to change the ideology of the culture. It's just one piece of the puzzle. And I just want to say, I'm behind you 100% to abolish this policy. 100%. And I don't just speak for myself, I speak for my wife, I speak for my neighbors that I've spoke to that are in agreement. I'm in agreement with you. 100% I'm behind you. And I want to thank you for that, for what your decision was last month. And I applaud you, and I'm confident that you're going to see truth and you're going to do the right thing tonight and moving forward. Because this is just the start of people awakening and coming and understanding what this is really all about. It's an indoctrination, and it is a culture war, and I hope and pray that you're on the right side of that, and you showed that last month. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Molly Walker. I live in Ocean Township. I raised my kids in Freehold, but they actually went to school at the New School of Monmouth County here in Holmdel. I am on
Can I have a show of hands of how many more people would like to speak on this policy? I'm just curious just where we're sitting here because it is 9:30 and there are other things to do during this meeting. Okay, about 3 or 4. Okay, thank you. I think this is the first. I don't think we ever exhausted the mic. It's a very prepared IT director, I might have to say.
All right, great. The man with the batteries. Okay, I'm Molly Walker. So I'm a certified nurse midwife. So I do sexual health with teenagers and preteens and adults and elders. I have treated some people for transgender people with hormone therapy. I can do, I prescribe that. I am in favor of 5756. I think it is very good policy. It was enacted by a conservative Republican governor. So I think if he thought it was okay, I think it's a pretty good thing. It does nothing. Some of the people who oppose this have been talking about like that the school is going to start medicating these kids to children who have decided that they have a gender difference and that the school is going to be applying these medications. There's nothing further from the thought, the truth. The school is just supporting the kid. The kid is not ready to tell its parents. Apparently something at home is telling the kid that their parents are going to be very mad and it's going to make life really difficult for them. And they don't have support. So they try it out with a trusted teacher or a trusted counselor at the school. Mr. Howard back there gave a very good talk about the progress of the HIB program here, and I was really excited about that. But if this policy is broken down, I fear bullying by parents and perhaps some religious institutions. You can see I'm a Unitarian Universalist like Reverend Rosemarie back here. But also, people are born with that, like the ability to sing or the ability, I can't play piano. I can sing okay, but I could just never play the piano. Some are really good at math. My husband's really good at math. And I'm really good at massage. I'm not really good at math. Okay. We all have these different abilities. We're born with them. Some of them are. I am so sorry to hear of this gentleman's son committing
Ma'am,
suicide.
please, attention, you're here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm so sorry that this man's son died of suicide. No, not all suicides are caused by transgender kids. There's other reasons that people commit suicide, and I'm very sorry to hear that. But this policy is very good. It encourages us, the adults in the school, to inform the parents when it is safe for that kid. You don't want to do it immediately, perhaps. You want to ask why they're telling them first, the teacher first, instead of the parent. So it's really important that I think that you keep this policy. And as somebody else mentioned, if you don't like the policy, create a better policy first, and then you can withdraw this one. But if you draw this one, it really gives, it takes away the safety net of the counselors and the teachers and the staff here at the school. So I really encourage you to not rescind 5756. I think it's a very important policy, and it's a healthcare provider. Nobody decides that they just like, oh, I'm going to be transgender today. Nobody wants to be a minority. Okay, nobody chooses to be a minority. Okay, you have to understand that. And kids at the age of 6 are saying, Mommy, I want to buy a dress. I don't want to wear jeans. I don't want to play baseball. I want to take ballet. They identify perhaps as the other gender. And that's not because the cell phone has been giving them information. They're 6.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, Alice Marie Hagan is my maiden name. I grew up on Ardmore Place in Holmdel, now live in Colts Neck. My sister recently moved back to Holmdel, my mom's house, and has 3 children, but is concerned about putting them in the public schools because of the social agenda. and all that's going on here. And so that's maybe $25,000 a student. I also have another friend who has 4 children, who puts her children, she lives on Ladwood, puts her 4 children in private school, and that's another, so it's about 175,000. I'm just listening to people talk about money. And the Hanover case, I sat there at the Hanover meeting, and they said their insurance company was paying all the back fees, and they don't have to pay a penny for this lawsuit. So the $100,000, I don't know where that came from. I also know the Pacific Justice Institute is ready to defend any township who is going to be sued by the state for free. So those are the options that we have as far as money goes on a lot of these lawsuit questions. I was ready to play Chloe Cole's testimony in front of Congress because I, I'm glad you're appealing. I'm standing in support of your appealing 5756, hopefully. And it was very powerful, but I was a tomboy. And this last woman that came and spoke, I dressed like a boy. I said this, I thought it was kind of silly, but when I was very young, I wanted to act like a boy and ran around with no shirt in the summertime until an adult told me that I couldn't do that anymore. But I played with dinosaurs. I climbed trees. I caught frogs. And it was normal. Chloe Cole, the detransitioner, says that that was normal and no one told her that. Social media got a hold of her too, and that really changed a lot of her thought process. And my heart really went out to her, and that's when I got interested in listening to people's testimonies about this. I think if you could save one child from going through the pain of regret that they did mutilate themselves, since people are concerned about that word, but she removed a viable organ, her breast. She removed them, and she can never go back on that. Many people that detransition are then considering suicide. She says she never had suicidal ideation until after transitioning. These are children. We've talked about that before. Their frontal lobe is not developed. The hormone treatments they take stops, the puberty blocker stops development of the frontal lobe. So there are a lot of things that stops your bone growth. People go through bone pain. Let them do this when they're older, after they can make that decision with a little bit more
Ma'am, can I
common
ask you to wrap
sense.
it up, please?
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
18, we know that after 11 studies, including Toronto 2021 study, that 80 to 90% children return to their birth gender by the age of 18. So I thank you for making this common sense decision if you do go ahead with it and repealing 5756. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. My name is Gerald Maglio from Neptune. I'm the director of the Dolores Turco Foundation, whose mission is to protect children from abuse and exploitation. I commend your decision to repeal this policy and urge you to stay the course, because the law is on your side, science is on your side, and God is on your side. I'd like to start just very quickly with the science. I did send this to you last month, but scientific evidence has shown that cross-sex medical treatments are harmful to children. And 19 states have restricted these procedures for children. The transition or suicide claim is not supported by scientific evidence. In fact, in a landmark Swedish study that followed transgender patients for 30 years, they found that after the sex reassignment, transgender patients were 19 times more likely to commit suicide than the regular population. And as you just heard, 85% of children who experience this is the research. I will leave it with you. Next, I'd like to go on to the law. Okay, to begin with, in September, the Morris County Court rejected the New Jersey Attorney General's frivolous attempt to enjoin Hanover from repealing this policy 5756, noting that it was a voluntary policy and can be repealed at any time, and that New Jersey LAD provides ample protection for transgender students. Secondly, minors children do not have the right of privacy to the exclusion of their legally fit parents under LAD or otherwise, and therefore do not have the right to direct administrators and staff to purposely withhold and conceal information from parents. LAD was never intended to preclude, does not preclude disclosure of information about a minor child health and safety welfare to their legally fit parents. I want to talk about just one lawsuit. There are many in which the parents do have the fundamental right under the 9th, 5th, and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution to direct the upbringing, education, and care of their minor children. And the federal courts are striking down these illegal and unconstitutional policies that infringe on parental rights. San Diego was one. I just want to say what the court said in this one. Actually, let me go on to another one. It's kind of a repeat. The court stated that decisions contrary to parental rights have a trifecta harm. One, it harms the child who needs parental guidance and possibly mental health intervention to determine if the incongruence is organic or the result of bullying, peer pressure, etc. Two, it harms the parents by depriving them of a long recognized 14th Amendment right to care, guide, and make health decisions for their children. And finally, it harms administrators and staff who are compelled to violate the parents' rights by forcing them to consent. And I just, in the last moment here, I just have a few words for our friends in the LGBT community. We are not your enemy. We are parents who love our children with all their faults, and we love you too and want the best for you. Your body was created by God with a specific plan, meaning, and purpose. He knows you intimately, loves you passionately. You do not have to change your body or one thing about yourself. Just seek and follow God's design for your life, and you will know peace, joy, and love. God bless you.
Thank you. This is our last speaker of the night. Okay, you'll get the last word.
Oh, cool. All righty. Members of the board, thank you very much for your service and the time tonight to hear our side of it.
Sir, can I ask for your name? And
yes, my name is Chris Palais. I live in Old Bridge, and I have two children that live here in the state of New Jersey. And I'm an adult that lives down in Florida. So I've been through some of this, but I do want to just speak to a couple things. Heard a lot of different things tonight. I'm not going to repeat a lot of it. But we are talking about the Word of God, and our friends here, some of our Jewish friends from the community, did bring up something. I just want to lay this out. What it actually says in Genesis 1:27, this is the complete Jewish Bible. It says, "So God created humankind in His own image. In the image of God, He created him. Male and female, He created them." Just two. And there is a very specific purpose. I love what the last lady was saying. I just want that to sink in, because there are constitutional laws that already protect our parental rights that we are here to defend and to stand up for. We've been going down a path for many years. We've lost our way of really what made America great. Yeah, America was great, and we're here back to make it great again. I'm just going to say that when you're considering this vote tonight, think about what made us great, and think about where we've been getting to. I hear this whispering. I get it. You don't want to hear it, but the fact is, as parents, we do have rights, and it's important, and that's why they are called dependents. Keep that in mind. We are the parents. We have a responsibility, a God-given responsibility to take care of them. They're on loan to us, and we have to protect them. And as men and women who are standing up for children, we have a right to speak up for them, and that's what we're doing here. So I hope that you can all keep that in consideration as you go through your vote, that it is important for the parents to be involved first. Let's focus on taking care of those really important family relationships. Listen, teachers, if they're so great and so wonderful, can understand how to deal with people like they're being propped up for, they're going to be able to figure out, okay, go straight to the parent. And if that parent reacts in a way that's like, what do you do? You have an obligation to the state to then report or at least raise a concern. And if they're like, oh, wow, I'm totally cool with that, then, then you go down that path. So I'm just saying, start with the parent. Don't let this idea of child-centeredness fool you that you have to affirm the child. Work with the parents. That's all. Thank you very
sir.
much.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Pender from Rutgers, New Brunswick. I'm sure y'all recognize me by now. But I wanted to start off by saying 5756 has nothing to do with a child's body or gender transitioning. Even if that were happening in school, which it wasn't, repealing 5756 would have nothing to do with it. It wouldn't stop it. It wouldn't help it. 5756 does not mention anything about gender transition or pills or gender hormones or anything like that. I just wanted that to be very clear. Now, I'd also like to talk about your roles as Board of Ed members. As your Board of Ed member, you are the boss of the teachers. So let's put policy 5756 into perspective. Let's say there's a big box store. Now, a big box store is a lot of departments, and you're the manager, you have to come up with a manual. And a big box store is like a lot of departments. They sell food, they sell clothing, but they may also have a gun counter. That's not uncommon for a big box store. And not everyone's familiar with selling guns. You're going to have a lot of employees, dozens, maybe hundreds, and they're tired. They don't necessarily know every single New Jersey law. They may not be familiar with guns. You're going to have some people who are, but not everyone is. And as a manager, it's your role to put in their handbook how to sell these guns. I think we can all agree that a gun is dangerous. It can be life-threatening if not sold properly. So if an employee is told to work on the gun counter one day and they've never sold guns before and they open their manual and they see nothing about guns, they're not going to know how to sell that gun properly. They're not going to know how to run a background check, as we all know you need to do if you're selling a gun. They're not going to know how to do that because there's nothing in that manual. They're not experts in New Jersey state law. They're tired. They're working long hours. It is up to the manager to tell them. Now, take the guns, take those into the transgender students, the non-binary, the non-gender conforming students, take that big box store to be the school district, take their employees to be your employees, your teachers, your counselors, and take the manager of that store to be you. Because when something happens, when someone slips up, even in the stuff that is covered in New Jersey state law, like bathroom issues, like issues about using pronouns, even the stuff that is covered in state law, when a teacher messes up with that, it's not going to be the employee at fault. It's going to be their manager for not putting that in properly and telling their employees how to deal with that situation. And I'd like to end on this note, that if you're going to vote to repeal 5756 tonight on the basis of parental rights, think about parental rights and how you won't have parental rights when you're no longer a parent because your child runs away from home, is thrown out, or God forbid, takes their life. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And with that, I really would like, on behalf of the board, I mean, we heard from 30 plus speakers tonight, so I appreciate everyone coming out. Appreciate everyone actually. I always say there's three sides to a coin. You have, heads and tails, and you have that little side on the other side. So everyone's opinions matter. I do appreciate it. So I thank you. That brings us to the point of the meeting where, can I get a motion? The items we will be voting on are items 1 through 25. And items 28 and 30. We'll be pulling items 26 and 27. Can I get a motion?
Move.
Second. Okay. Any discussion?
I want to say something regarding the policy, number 5.
Hey, again, can you move your mic down, Linda? I can't hear you.
Have something to say regarding the number 5, approval to rescind and abolish policy 5756. Is that one on the vote?
Yeah, that's
Okay, yeah. So my opinion regarding this one is before we have improved policies to in place and ready, we should provide a safe place for LGBT students. So I don't think we're ready to abolish this policy. So it's just my opinion.
Thank you, Linda. Sarika?
Yeah, I have something to say too. Just a couple of minutes. I think I just want to address it from a different perspectives. One is I know people brought in faith, and if you bring in faith, I think all faiths preach that all sentient beings should be at peace, whatever characteristic they may bear or choose to bear. So leaving emotion apart as well, if you just look at things logically, for universal well-being, we can't pit one group against another. We have to accept differences, that differences do exist. And just with that perspective, I want to say that I feel that there is really a way to unite the parental rights group, as so-called, and people who want to provide a safe haven for children who are different. I think a lot of this is just misconception. It just seems unbelievable that there's so much of a misconception. As people have said before, to think that the school is lying to parents, keeping secrets from them, and what's the advocating and promoting indoctrinating children and willy-nilly encouraging them to get genital surgery and hormones without parental consent. These are terrible things, and everybody agrees. I think everybody agrees that these are terrible things and shouldn't be happening, and parents should not be kept in the dark, and parents are the most trusted people for children. I don't think there's any conflict there at all. So I think I'm completely with the people who have spoken and expressed those opinions. And I also see their point of view. I think they feel that some children may be confused because of social media or several reasons. And then, and if you affirm it, then there's a chance now they'll buy into this and then they'll regret it later. Whereas if somehow we get involved, parents get involved sooner, then they will fix their confusion and straighten themselves out, which would be a very great thing, because life is easier if they're straight and narrow, really. Life is easier for those children. So, but even those kids who are confused, they need an adult to talk to. And if they could talk to the parents, they would talk to them. And now, if they can't talk to parents for whatever reason, if they have an adult to talk to, then most of the time, as Dr. Howard was telling us, the counselors in our school have actually bridged the gap and told the parents. It's not like our counselors are working against the parents. So if there are confused children who might be straightening themselves out with parents' help, telling a counselor would still be helpful. Because the misconception here is that if there was no adult in school for the child to go to, the misconception is that that child, when there's no adult to go to, they will somehow fix themselves or tell the parent. But that may not happen all the time. If they could tell the parent, they would have said that already. But even to fix themselves, even that period of confusion and shame and guilt that they'll be suffering for a few years, we can save them that by having an adult that they can share this with. So that's the kids that we hope are confused and will actually straighten themselves out. And I'm saying this because life is easier for them. Life is not easy for a transgender kid or any of the any children who are deviants from normal. It's not easy. So they can't choose to be that just like that. And if those kids who actually are different from the traditional genders, if those children don't have a safe adult to go to, and they don't choose to tell their parents right away for whatever reason, then they just suffer in shame and guilt through their formative years, and those years are wasted. And these kids may be brilliant at math or music, wonderful people who got a lot of potential, and that potential is limited because they've not been able to confide in an adult safely. Now, if So I feel we can combine it. On one hand, we don't want we don't want a policy where as soon as a child goes to a counselor, the counselor is immediately writing a note to the parents and outing them, and telling them, sending a note the same evening. Then the child would never tell the counselor, and they would be just suffering in shame. Nor maybe, as a parental rights group people say, nor maybe should we keep the parents in dark for a prolonged period, because that too is not good. Maybe we can find a way to combine the two, because even the parental rights group people do not want a child not to go to anybody and suffer in silence. I think we all want the same thing. That's what I'm trying to say. And I just think that we don't see it clearly enough. And there are several studies. There are some children who are truly different. And so this transgender people, the NIH study has shown, and I have a couple of others, but this one thing is that 76% of them suffer from verbal harassment. 50% do not even report it. And 82% of these children considered suicide, and 40% attempted it. And this number comes down to almost 50%, actually 40%, if they could simply confide in one adult, any adult, a family member or a counselor in this case. So I just want to stop there, but I want to ask the board today to just take their time before voting no. I request all the board members to consider this seriously. I think we can make a change, and we do have a policy committee meeting, which was supposed to be in October, but got postponed to November 2nd, which is next week. Chris, Kim, and I have met some parents, and we were seriously considering adopting the NJSBA policy, which sort of has protections for both sides. It talks about looking at this on a case-by-case basis. And I think if we can just take our time and present this next board meeting, we'll have a month to decide that. I think it may be something that's palatable to everybody. And I think that is really the way to go forward, because we're seeing the world the way it is. The only way out of this divisive world is to really try to find common ground. And I think we all have common ground. I do hope the board votes no to not repeal it today, bring it back next month in a reformed way and put a new policy in place before removing this old one.
Thank you, Sarika.
Just have a brief comment to follow on. And one of the interesting things that a lot of folks don't realize is how sloppy the policy was written in the first place. So regardless of where you stand on the policy, Strauss Esme put together a very sloppy product. So it's accurate. On November 2nd, we're having a policy committee meeting. And so I think the resulting work from that committee will be satisfactory to the vast majority of all the folks in this room. And it may be much to the surprise of some folks. Look, the First Amendment is alive and well. We heard a lot today. I heard a number of things that were accurate, a ferocious amount of things that were grossly inaccurate, but that's your right. You have the right to speak and throw stones. I have a nice little collection right to my right, and your voice matters. But I'll share what I've said at previous meetings to all the students, because that's who this is all about. You are perfect just the way you are. Period. Period. Attacks because one will say there are boys and there are girls. You're free to attack somebody who says there are boys and there are girls. That's okay. You're free to attack someone to say it's weird to have an issue or concern regarding mutilating their genitals. You can say that that's weird. I disagree. I think the notion of mutilating your genitals is ferociously barbaric. So getting back to the policy, which is what this is about, I think that the product that will emerge, in my view, subsequent to November 2nd and subsequent meetings, will take a very sloppy work product from Strauss Esme, a small company in Toms River, whose contract, by the way, in my view, should also be terminated as soon as, excuse me, as soon as it's up. Yeah, thank you. Well, I think it just should be. So I'll leave it with that. November 2nd, we have a committee meeting. We're going to take a very, in my view, the board will choose however they wish to vote. But if it's rescinded, take a look. All of the LAD, the civil rights, and this is, I have to say to the students, all students, you've heard some very scary talk from folks that purport to protect you. Be assured the law against discrimination is in place. Be assured civil rights and other related laws remain in place. And be assured that Holmdel is one of the most welcoming districts, and I hope they all are this way, but the most welcoming districts in the state of New Jersey, and I would say across the country, from the administration and the staff. Do not be afraid of the divisive, horrific language that some folks put out here today that had no basis whatsoever on the facts. I think you should be very proud to be in this district. You are perfect just the way you are. You are welcomed in however you are and however you feel. It doesn't mean that people can't have their own belief system. And that's also a right, thankfully, in this great, wonderful country of ours. And I think ultimately, if this is rescinded, let's stay in touch. Even the folks, I have very fond memories of Reverend Rusty. I know the organization very, very well. Continue to have conversations and honest conversations that are fact-based and come to a program and a policy that every person, every family in Holmdel, after the process is concluded, will say, you know what? The board did good work there. And that's my prediction, that folks come out saying, you know, the board did good work there. And even with the conversational friction of tonight, and I want to thank Board President Reddy for really, as on both sides and all sides of the equation, really opening up the dialogue and giving folks a tremendous amount of time and leeway to share exactly how you feel. And I think that's laudable. So thank you for that. And those are my comments on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, parents.
Terrence made a great point. Holmdel has a extremely welcoming school district. And with the policy or not, we have a proven track record of creating a safe, supportive, and inclusive environment, especially for transgender students. But let me note, for all students, and we're not perfect, but we are striving to continue to improve. And I was down at the NJ School Board Association, my first convention, for a couple of days, and that opened my eyes and gave greater appreciation to be in this wonderful town, this small community of ours, because it is doing a great job at this, and we will continue to, with or without the policy. Dr. Kalor, you made a lot of valid points. We've spoken about this stuff directly as well, and we'll continue to, as we get working on the policy committee to find this common ground for what's best for our community. And I appreciate everybody's comments. I feel that this exercise we've had over these 3 meetings and being able to take this feedback in is going to help us now when we meet in the policy committee and moving forward to continue to improve this community. Any student, for that matter, for whatever they're going through, can continue to feel comfortable. Our guidance has done a great job, and they're always looking to get better at what they do. But for any student, whether it's something to do with your gender or something to do with a disability or a child being lonely, feel like they're not fitting in, they can continue to feel comfortable speaking to guidance or a staff member, teacher, administration, somebody that they feel comfortable with to share with as their first point of contact if need be. But I'm a strong believer that in the end, parental involvement is key. And I do continue to do research and read. And when it comes to suicide awareness, parental involvement is really key in mitigating that. And that's what I want to be a part of, creating a school, continuing to have a school system that is going to be here as a bridge to help a child introduce something to their parents if they need us here for that. So thank you all.
Thank you, Chris. Michael, can we do a roll call?
Mr. Reddy,
Yes.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
Mrs. Briamonte,
Yes to everything, abstaining on 3, 4, and 5.
Mrs. Zhang,
No to number 5, yes to all others.
Dr. Kalor,
No to number 5, yes to all the others.
Mrs. Tassila,
No to number 5, yes to everything else.
Mr. Buckley,
Yes.
Mrs. Damari,
Yes.
Mr. Mann.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mike. John, would you mind reading number 26? Please.
Sure. Acceptance of non-monetary donation from the village school PSA. Resolved that the board accept with gratitude a non-monetary donation from the village PSA of 12 Promethean interactive boards to be installed in third grade classrooms, which includes small and large group classrooms at a cost not to exceed $65,399.
Thank you, John. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
One second. Any discussion? Okay. Mike, we roll call?
Mr. Reddy.
Yes, and thank you so much. This is an absolutely generous gift and a great gift that will benefit these students for many years. So thank you.
Mr. Wall.
Yes, thank you very much.
Mrs. Briamonte.
Yes, thank you.
Mrs. Zhang.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Kalor.
Yes, thank you.
Mrs. Tasillo.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Buckley.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Namari.
Yes, thank you to the PSA.
Mr. Mann.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Jeff, could you do number 27? Would you mind?
Acceptance of non-monetary donation from the village school PSA. That the board accept with gratitude a non-monetary donation from the village PSA of 6 30-inch by 60-inch plastic tables at a cost not to exceed $500.
Thanks, Jeff. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? See none. Mike, can you do a roll call?
Mr. Reddy.
Yes, thank you again.
Mr. Wall.
Yes, thank you.
Mrs. Briamonte.
Yes, thank you.
Mrs. Zhang.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Kalor.
Yes, thank you.
Mrs. Tasillo.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Buckley.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Damari.
Yes, thank you for all the hard work, PSA.
Mr. Mann.
Yes, thank you to the PSA.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Brings us to old business. Does anyone have any old business they would like to discuss fairly quickly? Okay, see none. Cool. Any new business? Sarika?
Yes, I want to propose a new business. I want to make sure that we have it on the agenda for our committee of the whole meeting next month and on the BOE meeting next month, an adoption to bring about a new policy for transgender. Chris, Kim, and I have been working on this, and we will be able to meet on 2nd and come up with a version of the NJSBA policy, which I think should be approved fairly soon. And I'd like to bring it up for a vote next month and possibly for a second vote in December. So we have that in place by the end of this year.
Okay, thank you. I think the proper process, and the board attorney could tell me, we'd discuss it, then have first reading. Exactly. But I think we're on the right track, and I think I would agree in terms of following that path. We just have to make sure we follow it the proper way.
Is there no legal way to follow the path so we can present it next month?
If it were the will of the board, we can certainly work on it at the November 2nd policy meeting and bring it to the committee of the whole as a draft at November 8th for potential first reading at the November public reading and potential second reading at the December meeting,
Right.
if that were the will of the board.
Right, if there are no legal hitches, I would like to do that. Just as we repealed it very quickly in 2 meetings, we'd be able to institute a new one quickly too in 2 meetings, I would think.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying.
There's no legal problem with doing that.
As long as it's not sloppy and it's done properly.
Absolutely, we have enough
and
time to do
thoughtfully.
it right, yeah.
Right, we don't want to take sloppy and give sloppy.
Exactly.
Okay,
Right, but we have 4 people on the committee and we can work on it.
I understand that. I'm on the committee, so I'm hearing this for the first time that.
4
you wanna
including
move
you,
it forward.
right.
Oh, okay. There are 4. Okay, let's remember that. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. The only thing, like Chris said, we went to the school board show the last 2 days, very educational. Other board members, if you have an opportunity next year to go to it, it's probably the only thing that the state offers where you have everything under the sun, from legal to food services to you name it that we deal with. It's there. So it's definitely an educational event. The only other thing we'll have for next month is if people had heard National Honor Society inductions or National Honor Society improvement, what would you call it? Acceptances were sent out. So Dr. Cascone and Dr. Irwin will have the numbers and all those things for the rest of the board, I guess, in the next week or two when they follow through with everything. Terrence?
Just one brief item. Just want to make sure the board, if you haven't received the MOU that's being contemplated for the Nokia site, to try to take a look and read it thoroughly. The Nokia building is in danger of being demolished in a proposed redevelopment program that would increase the square footage by 50%. There are significant folks in Holmdel that want to see that building preserved. And so whether it's the pilot that's in the MOU where the school board would receive absolutely zero tax dollars, or the notion of Robert Wilson's former office being demolished for potential restaurants and fitness centers and things of that nature, really important and timely to look at it now and just to at least ponder it. And if you have any thoughts, to bring them to the board, because it does have a potential use as an educational center. There are many folks that are interested in science and museum as a public place because it has universal significance. So try to read the MOU. The redevelopment ordinance has not been passed yet. That requires several iterations and readings and things of that nature. The value of the property right now is quite low. Remember, the speculative developer bought it for about 3.7 million. They're selling the open space for about 4.75 million. So he's doing quite well there. And also a redevelopment program. I'm not an appraiser, maybe something the board may want to look at, but the minimal value of that building right now that could potentially be underwritten by tech companies and being a place of value, a place of learning, like Liberty Science Center has sponsors, tech sponsors and things of that nature. There could potentially be a zero taxpayer impact, beautiful science, museum, lab, place of wonder tied to the horn antenna and that history right there, right in Holmdel. And what I mentioned earlier to one of the folks here, go to 2034, 2044. None of us are on the board. We're not involved. What would be the legacy of that building? Perhaps there is no action to do and it goes the way it is. Maybe it gets demolished. Maybe it's a Panera Bread. Maybe it's an office or some other combination right by the famous horn antenna. Or perhaps it's an incredible place of learning and wonder and science, a museum, labs, collaboration centers for the students. Not now, not this year, next year, the year after, decades from here. And my own request is that the governing body not take action to spike the value of that property. Once that redevelopment plan is in place, if it's put in place, the value of that property will skyrocket and the ability for a public entity to acquire it will diminish tremendously. So I'm just sharing this publicly. So if the folks in the public are interested, let the Board of Education know, let the Township Committee know. Maybe there are partnership opportunities. So the story is yet to be written. Instead of demolishing the Nokia site, to make it a place of wonder, education, perhaps multi-jurisdictional with universities and colleges and other jurisdictions, to make it an incredible place of learning in a unique, universally significant location. Thank you.
I have something to, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if this question is answerable, but would a tech sponsor mitigate the need for a bond referendum?
Potentially, sure.
Just want to clarify that. So
yeah, the bond was only introduced with 3 votes. 2 members were absent. It requires 4 votes on passage, a supermajority.
or a tax levy, right? Or in some way?
Well, ironically, the Bell Works pilot, where we should be under traditional taxation getting about 65%, which would be about 17 or $18 million right now. That's actually facilitating the municipality to the positive, if you're going to look at it that way, facilitating the ability to leverage those resources. Right now, we're going to have a heck of a budget problem next year because of that deficit, about 16, 17, 18 million since 2018. And in addition, if the redevelopment plan goes through as is, they're given a pilot under the MOU, which brings in, because some board members may wonder what's the relevance to the Board of Education. From a financial standpoint, the pilot would cut out a revenue item that we would have to raise from the taxpayers. And this is a voluntary item for the Township Committee to choose what they wish to do. And from an infrastructure standpoint, from a long-term facility standpoint, to the extent that pre-K classrooms or other means and methods of growth and technology and wonder, as it were, If that assessment could be handled by the professional staff, they may be able to inform the board to what extent additional dialogue may be useful, and maybe the dialogue, isn't able to move forward, or perhaps maybe it is. Won't get into the particular, dialogue of the meeting, but we had a meeting with the mayor and the deputy mayor, and the superintendent was with us, and the administrator on September 21st. And we had a dialogue that was, I thought, very productive. And yet now I see a redevelopment plan, which is going to tremendously increase the value of that property and make it prohibitively expensive for any tech or other, it may be a different company. I'm using tech as an example, but a company that would say, you know what, we want to participate in this worldwide phenomena where cosmic microwave radiation, where there's a discovery that tied to the theory of the universe, the Big Bang theory, where Mr. Wilson and Penzias had offices. Instead, a bulldozer may come and flatten that. So I at least want to have a time marked in public where folks were advised, they warned, and educated as to what the status is. And I would ask the board to consider searching out their own facts, so they can do their own research and perhaps have an opinion that's different, just perfectly fine. Or you may find 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, to look back and say, that was such a fantastic collaboration with the township committee to make that a school, to make that a high-tech area where you can do advanced learning and labs and have it fully underwritten by companies that want to participate in community. Tesla, Google, Apple. Would you be interested in the horn antenna area and participating and being a stakeholder in one of the founding areas of theories of the universe? I think that's a fairly quick conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely want to learn more about that. So yeah. And
anyway, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
I think that's a huge project, probably can be done in collaboration with township, maybe a project for township. But I think it's beyond the scope of the Board of Ed. As it is, we have tons of, mundane things that we need to do in terms of running the place. And also we have to focus on learning loss and our transportation. We have, several day-to-day issues. This is a great long-term project, but I think is more in keeping with township, because as BOE, at least from my reading of BOE duties, like a business ventures looking at investments and buildings seems, at least from my reading, beyond the scope of Board of Ed.
Okay.
But I think it'll be good in collaboration with the township.
I
right?
think too, also as a taxpayer, though, not only as Board of Ed member, as a
As-
taxpayer,
Exactly, we can
it's
go
a
to the
viable deal.
township,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Rather than through Board of Ed, through the township would be the right thing to do.
Well, then, if you're interested, reach out to the township and urge them to not pass any redevelopment ordinances until it's properly vetted. That may be a
Maybe,
productive
yeah, and
idea.
every resident of
Yeah.
Holmdel can do that too,
Yeah.
particularly BOE.
That's a good
all I'm
start. I
saying,
agree, I
right.
agree with that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, the good news is we don't have to adjourn into executive session. So if I can get a motion from someone to, oh, yeah. Yes. Questions or comments from the public? Bring it on. Yes, sir.
I'll make it brief. One of the other points.
Can I
that
get your name and address,
Oh,
sir?
sure. Michael Gottesman, New Jersey Public Education.
Thank you, sir.
I'm from Wayne, New Jersey. One of the things I wanted to finish up with earlier, and coincidentally, you had that big presentation tonight on HIB. And it was a self-assessment of how your district is doing on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Tonight, based upon what in my opinion is, and opinions differ, based upon political elements, you decided to rescind the policy. Based upon talk about transitioning and mutilating and a woke agenda and culture wars and other comments of that sort from the audience and from the dais. you decided to send a message to your transgender community that you don't support them, that their rights and freedoms don't matter, and you made it on a political basis, in my opinion. So here's what I have. Here's my suggestion. You've self-assessed HIB for your district. Why don't you now self-assess HIB for yourself? Just a question to think about. Mr. Demare, I will be sending everyone.
It's Damari.
I'm sorry, Damari.
Thank you.
I will be sending everyone the information about the 3 2-hour Zoom meeting training courses. They're not videos that are available to you from the Division of Civil Rights. And I guess the last thing that I want to say is, oh, excuse me. The statements that I attributed to Mr. Mann, timestamp 5635. The statements that I attributed to Mr. Hall from the last meeting, timestamp 1 hour, 1 minute, 22 seconds. So the last thing that I want to say is that I look forward to seeing the less sloppy version of policy 5756. I hope that you guys do a really good job on it, that perhaps it could be something as an example for districts in the rest of the state. And I hope that you're able to do a better job than Strauss has made. And I look forward to seeing it.
Thanks,
Thank you. And thank you for your time.
Hi, Jacob Pender, Rutgers, New Brunswick. And I'm talking about something totally different. I just wanted to say that the moment of silence earlier was only for the people who were lost in Israel. I think at the beginning of next meeting, I think you should hold a moment of silence for the lives lost in both Israel and Palestine.
That's what you mean.
There were
Yes, that's exactly what we meant. We said both.
no,
100%.
you didn't. No, you didn't. You only said Israel. And the current death count
I
in
said
Palestine.
Hamas, which I did not mean to say. Yes.
Oh,
For both
okay.
sides.
Well, it's not
tragic on
not
both
Hamas.
sides.
I'm talking about
Correct.
civilians.
Thank you
and
very much.
The current death count is 2,700 children in Palestine. That's almost 3 times all the civilians killed in Israel as of today. That's the current death count. So at the next Board of Ed meeting, I hope that there can be a sufficient, even if you did say Hamas, attributing all Palestinians to Hamas is also inappropriate. So at the next Board of Ed meeting, I hope we can have a moment of silence for all the innocent lives lost, not taking a side in the war, but all the innocent lives lost in the conflict that's currently happening. As the superintendent said, you know, there are a lot of people from the Middle East here. I'm sure you have Palestinian descendants who are students in your school. And even if you don't, it sends a good message that we care about all lives that are lost in a conflict, all innocent lives. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to be clear, the Board of Education, the moment of silence for Israelite citizens, Palestinian citizens, Christians, Jews, Muslims, all innocent people who are suffering and have suffered. Just want to be very clear that that is precisely what the board president was indicating earlier and why we all stood for a moment of silence. And I'm not suggesting I'm speaking for the board, but I want to make it really clear based on your comments. Thank you for them. But parsing aside, that is what the moment of silence is for the incredible burdens that they are bearing, the innocent folks in the Middle East right now.
Thank you, Terrence. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Louise Wolben, but I do want to read something that a mental health.
Can I get your name and address? I'm sorry.
Louise Wolben, South Brunswick, and I'm actually reading a statement that Stacy Enziger from a mental health counselor from Manalapan took the time to write, so I did want to read it. Transgender and gender diverse students may experience poorer school outcomes due to a threatening school climate. To be clear, the term transgender refers to individuals whose gender identity does not align with the gender assigned to them at birth, whereas gender diverse encompasses people who self-identify as having a gender identity outside the binaries of male and female. A study published in the Journal of Adolescent Health finds that a social transition during childhood or adolescence is not harmful to transgender or gender diverse youth. but experiences of harassment based on gender identity in K through 12 school environments are. These results strongly suggest that social transition itself will not harm transgender and gender diverse youth. By social transmission, we are referring to using preferred pronouns, going by a different name, or dressing to fit your identified gender. However, harassment based on gender identity from classmates, teachers, and school staff is harmful. School connectedness, also measured by inquiring about the presence of caring relationships with adults at school, has been associated with higher academic performance and better mental health, such as less frequent suicidal ideation. We can no longer afford to ignore the growing evidence that higher rates of adverse mental health outcomes experienced by many transgender people are due to discrimination, stigma, and unsupportive social environments. In the United States, most transgender students report feeling unsafe at school because of their gender identity. U.S. transgender students experience high levels of school victimization, varying from verbal harassment to physical assault, and thus avoid gender segregated spaces in school, such as bathrooms and locker rooms, for fear of harassment. The hostile school environment can negatively affect the academic success and later the labor market engagement of transgender youth. Parental support is significantly associated with higher life satisfaction, lower perceived burden of being transgender, and fewer depressive symptoms. Transgender students are more likely than their cisgender counterparts to attempt suicide, experiment with drugs and alcohol, experience bullying, and be forced to have sex. Policy 5756 should remain intact, which we know it's not, as it protects the youth whose family is not welcoming to these change and may perceive these actions negatively and results in dangerous and life-threatening actions. By revoking 5756, it may unfortunately result in loss of life to a student in our very own district, and that will be blood on your hands. Again, this was written by a mental health counselor, Stacy Einziger, and I too look forward to the new policy that's going to be written, and I hope that we're advised when it will be on the agenda so that we can come and hear it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, see no further comments. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Can I have a second? We are done at 10:31. Thank you for everyone for coming out and for your attendance and patience. All adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.